The way to Nyeri County. Good morning once again. I'm Regina Manyara, but I'm not doing this alone. My colleague will be joining me later on. That is Safin Acheng, who is also going to be handling this particular show as we try and show you what happened in the last 3 days and what to expect in the next 2 as Kenyans continue sending tributes for the fallen president there, who's already been termed as a patient man and an astute leader who was focused on driving Kenya's economy. When he took up office in 2002-2003, some of the pledges that he made included ensuring that free primary education is delivered, and as of January 2003, well, at least 150,000 students made it to school under the free primary education program. We are live and we expect your feedback on our various social media platforms, including Twitter at KBC Channel 1. My Twitter handle is at Ray Manyara. Now we start off with stories that have been making headlines, and we take a look at what was happening in Parliament yesterday, where legislators bid farewell to the late former head of state Mwai Kibaki in a solemn ceremony in Parliament. The body of the former president has been lying in state there for 3 days. The late president's body was then transferred to the Lee Funeral Home in a ceremony overseen by the military. The president will be buried in his Hodhaya home in Nyeri on Saturday, and this is how legislators paid their last respects to late Mwai Kibaki.
Members of Parliament Wednesday held a brief ceremony to bid farewell to former late President Mwai Kibaki. Led by the Speaker and the clerks of the National Assembly and the Senate, the lawmakers lined up outside the chambers to witness the final journey of Kenya's third president. For 3 days, the former head of state has been a guest of Parliament, lying in state as Kenyans paid their final respects. For the lawmakers, Kibaki's multiple terms in Parliament was of great significance, having served the longest as an MP. They observed silence as the Kenya Defence Forces wheeled the fallen leader out of the August House for the last time. And onto the ceremonial track, the journey leading to the Lee Funeral Home, ahead of a state funeral service on Friday.
Now, members of Parliament have hailed the late former President Mwai Kibaki as a man who turned around the country's economy and transformed the education sector. Speaking during the National Assembly special sitting to pay tribute to the late president, the legislators said the only way to honor the fallen hero is to emulate his leadership of steering the development agenda and shun politicking. Timothy Kipnusu with the details.
The National Assembly on Wednesday had a special sitting just to pay tribute to the late former President Mwai Kibaki. They recognized the effort that Kibaki made in changing the lives of Kenyans, particularly in improving their standard of living.
This is the man, Mr. Speaker, whose focus was not only on the economy, but also on democratic space, on meritocracy, and later on constitutional reforms. His legacy is superb.
The legislators remember the late president for improving the country's infrastructure, especially tarmacking roads, even as they are leaders to emulate him by avoiding politicking and focus on their mandate as Kibaki did.
While he might not have played the politics as well as we would have wanted him to, but that was Mwai Kibaki. So we have to accept him as he is and agree that he did a great job.
Mr. Speaker, I come from a very small community, the Abanyala in Western Kenya. He is the first president, Honorable Speaker, to appoint a Munyala minister, Dr. Newton Kulundu. We eulogize him as a great friend of ours, Honorable Speaker.
Will you leave a united nation? Will you leave a country that is economically vibrant? Will you leave a country that will remember you for many good things? Or you will leave a country that will be in shambles? Speaker, that is a question that must live with us.
They lauded the late president for cracking the whip in the war against graft by not sparing anyone involved in corruption scandals.
He detested people who are involved in corruption, and he encouraged us to work hard. He is the one, Honorable Speaker, who moved from our economy, from down there, Honorable Speaker, to now a thriving economy.
Kibaki will be remembered as a person who does not betray. He doesn't believe in the politics of deceit and betrayal.
Among the many qualities we can learn from President Mwai Kibaki is that it is important for leaders not to be conflicted when they are leading. President Mwai Kibaki never did business with government.
Public viewing of the body of the late retired President Mwai Kibaki entered its third and final day yesterday as Kenyans from all walks of life thronged Parliament buildings to pay homage to the late president. Now, a state funeral service will be held on Friday at the Nyayo Stadium.
By around 6:40 in the morning, the casket bearing the remains of former President Mwai Kibaki made its way to the Parliament buildings. For the third day running, Kenyans availed themselves to pay their last respect to the third president of the country, Mwai Kibaki.
Nimetoka huko Nyeri asubuhi. Mimi nakumbuka Rais Kibaki kwa alileta masomo ya bure, akaleta CDF. Na tunamkumbuka sana kwa sababu mambo mengi, hata hizi barabara za Thika Road alianza.
Budget tulikuwa tunafanya sisi wenyewe, lakini sasa hivi unakuta kwamba budget yetu sisi tunafanya nini? Tunafanya na mikopo. So wakati wake uchumi ulikuwa stable, si kama vile ilivyokuwa sasa.
Maana ile vitendo wametutendea Kenya hii, kama tunaweza kupata president mwingine kama Kibaki, Kenya yetu inaweza enda sana.
Despite the cold weather, still Kenyans left their duties to come and pay respect to a man eulogized as a leader who transformed public service.
And he came in just when we, like civil service was so stagnating and it was disheartening to work for the civil service. He came at a time when people were leaving the civil service to look for greener pastures. And he revived the civil service. I can say I benefited 4 promotions during his tenure.
Walemavu kama sisi mtajiwezi yote amekuwa tusahau. Nimekuja lazima nimwangalie.
Kuna siku my brother alikuwa na shida na certificate yake ya form 4. Alafu akaamrisha certificate zote zipeane kwa wanafunzi. My brother alikuwa anasoma Chabakali High. Alafu zikaachiliwa. Lakini alikuwa ametafuta hiyo certificate for 3 years.
Away from just viewing the body of former President Kibaki, the exercise meant something even for those who are too young to share a personal experience with Kibaki.
Nimekuja hapa kama njia ya kusimamia wanafunzi wote na kuonyesha rais kuwa pia sisi wanafunzi shuleni tuko na heshima na tunahuzunika sana katika mazishi haya.
By the time he took power in 2002, I was in class 1 and that's I'm a beneficiary, one of the beneficiary wenye walifaidika na free primary education.
A state funeral for the late former president will be conducted on Friday, ahead of interment slated for Saturday.
Now, ahead of that state funeral that is to be held tomorrow, is that particular service is going to be interdenominational and led by the Catholic Church, after which after the service, the body will head back to the Lee Funeral Home, awaiting transportation to Nyeri on Saturday morning. We'll be giving you details in the course of this particular broadcast. Now, Interior PS Dr. Karanja Kebisho yesterday led a delegation of principal secretaries to the home of the late Kibaki's, Kibaki's Nyeri office. Now, the PS acknowledged the role played by the late former president in mentoring many officers who joined the public service.
At the former president Mwai Kibaki's office in Nyeri Estate in Nairobi, it is a beehive of activities as high-profile guests among them ambassadors of different countries and a delegation of principal secretaries, will troop in to pen down their condolence messages for a man who has been eulogized as a statesman. Interior PS Dr. Karanja Kibisho, who served in cabinet when Kibaki was in power, described him as a president who had confidence in his cabinet.
We worked under him, and barely would you ever receive a call, him directing you what to do. And that is the confidence he had in all the cabinet ministers. All of them, if you talk to them, they'll tell you there was never a morning-to-morning directive. Once the general guidance and policy is given, then it was left to everyone who was the cabinet ministers, principal secretaries, permanent secretaries then, to deliver. And all he would be looking for at the end of it all, do you deliver results?
The PS terming the retired head of state as a leader who was keen on instilling order.
You all remember how serious he was in follow-up, and you all remember that as principal secretaries every month would have to assemble the first Monday of the month to take stock of the working of government, to ensure that whatever programs are running are still going on well. And that's the reason why we saw a lot of improvement, whether it's from the performance of our economy, whether it's from the performance of civil servants and the public service at large, created order. And I think every public servant will miss that.
Sentiments echoed by Ngari Gituku, who served as Kibaki's private secretary, who described him as a servant leader worth emulating.
Privilege of serving an enigma. Your business becomes to learn the ropes, right? To know how royalty works and how to conduct oneself. It was more of a learning experience, but the privilege of being taken in to serve such an icon is something that comes only once in a lifetime.
Kibaki never once wanted to be called a boss. He wanted to be called a servant of the people. And that is why we, the people of Nyeri and the people of Odaya, had him for 40 years as our MP. And it is important for us to say that His Excellency Mwai Kibaki never campaigned in Odaya. They just waited for an election and voted him back.
As Kenyans continue to pen down their memories and glowing tribute for the late President Emilio Stanley Mwai Kibaki, he will indeed be immortalized in the history books for his leadership that saw many lives change. Reporting for Channel 1 from Nyari in Nairobi, I am Safin Aching Ouma.
Now, a photo gallery depicting the moments of the late President Mwai Kibaki was Wednesday mounted at Parliament buildings to give Kenyans a glimpse into his life as they viewed his body. The rare images walked Kenyans down memory lane.
A journey through the life of Kenya's third president. The excellently placed photos documenting his political journey, his life and times with his two predecessors, his time as a legislator, not forgetting his life as a family man. The precious memories both in black and white and in color, some dating back to his youth.
When I see the photos, it is nostalgic. You feel like you have lost. I will miss him. Let me say I will miss him. I know his history since the times he was a civil servant because I've read about it.
I see a father figure, a father of the nation who has really cared for his family, for the nation at large. Different institutions, everybody could be catered by his government.
Members of the public couldn't help but marvel at the rich history and the memories the photos evoked.
Nikiona picha za mzee Kibaki, naona kazi yenye alianza ni kama alianza akiwa kijana, kwa sababu ninaona picha ambazo ni za kupendeza. Kwa hivyo hii Kenya alianza kutumikia akiwa mzee, akiwa kijana, na mpaka kuzeeka kwake picha inakuambia amezeekea hata kwa kazi.
Many were fascinated by this part of history of a man credited to have been the longest serving member of parliament.
Alileta mabadiliko mengi. Moja yao ni historia ya 2010 constitution, alafu performance contracting na vision 2030.
And he came in just when we, like civil service was so stagnating and it was disheartening to work for the civil service. He came at a time when people were leaving the civil service to look for greener pastures. And he revived the civil service. I can say I benefited 4 promotions during his tenure.
The photo tributes were mounted in 18 hours by the military and had 227 photos. The photos will be translocated to Nyayo National Stadium for the public to view during the interdenominational prayers on Friday to give more Kenyans a chance to view as they bid farewell to the late former head of state who will be laid to rest on Saturday the 30th.
Now that was just a recap of the last 3 days where the late president's body has been lying in state in Parliament to afford Kenyans a moment to go pay their last respects to the late president there. And so much has been said about the late Mwai Kibaki, both by dignitaries as well as persons who knew him on a personal capacity. I would want to rope in my colleague this morning, that is Sefine Achieng. Good morning, Sefine. How are you?
I'm good, Regina. I can see you bright and early, looking good this morning.
You too. Now that you're talking about, going down memory lane and looking at, Mwai Kibaki and his legacy, what personally do you remember of Mwai Kibaki's tenure?
Well, what stood out for me about him was what I've heard many even say, politically speaking, they called him a gentleman when it comes to the political context. And by this, we saw how his leadership style stood out. He was not the usual confrontational type of a leader who would be quick to respond to his opponents or, utter some words just to, send a strong message to his political opponents. Most of the time he was very calm, and how he responded to critics, and there were many, during his time. And of course, we also saw how he got into power, that peaceful transition, in 2002. Of course, it came against a backdrop of so many issues, but that was the first time after a very long time that the country actually saw that kind of a movement into a new regime in a peaceful way. We've seen what has happened, what came later, but 2002, Ray stands out for me. And of course, I'm looking also, I was digging into his history in politics, and I saw how in 1988, when he was vice president, he fell out with, the then president Daniel Toroitich arap Moi, and the then president removed that cap of being VP from him. But as a gentleman, he did not react immediately. He actually stayed loyal and to KANU and to the president for a very long time, until when Section 2A of the Constitution was repealed and multi-party democracy was reintroduced in the country. That's when he decided to make a move and chart his way forward when it comes to the leadership of this country. So quite a gentleman, if you ask me, compared to the politics that we see today. If it was today, then you'd have seen a different kind of a leader. But yeah, that is something that stood out for me, apart from the many things that people have said about his strong legacy.
I like what you have said about what happened in 1988, and I would want to put it on a very light note. In the political corridors, we all waited for lunch hour when the late President Daniel Toroitich arap Moi would actually fire his ministers. So when this in 88, it happens that the VP was demoted to actually the Minister of Health. Options were there, either to resign or continue soldiering on. So for Kibaki might have, he held himself as a gentleman. He may have looked like a pushover, but he was a fighter, such that in 1992 he formed the Democratic Party, that is DP, and that is when he actually resigned. If you look at the history of even cabinet ministers during Mwai's era, none had the guts that Mwai Kibaki had to actually resign. It was the prerogative of, the somewhat prerogative of the then president, that is Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, to actually fire his ministers. But Kibaki did not get fired. He resigned to a great entrance in December in Nyeri County. But we're going to be discussing that in not too long with one of our guests who happened to be one of the professionals and part of the youth wing that actually physically led the late Mwai Kibaki into Nyeri County after he formed the Democratic Party in 1992, and it was
happening in the country even as the country continues to mourn the third president. So take us through the rest of the stories that made headlines.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Safid. The talk about the running mate is quite rife in the political scene in the run-up to the August 9th elections. These are some of the stories we're going to be highlighting in not too long. For now, we take a quick breather and will be 28th of April 2022, and Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate Raila Odinga has cut short his trip to the United States of America to attend the funeral of former President Mwai Kibaki. Raila has been touring the U.S., where he outlined his vision for Kenya in his first 100 days should be elected into office. Raila, who met with U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Molifi, said he would further strengthen his close ties with the U.S. President Joe Biden for the benefit of Kenyans. Raila is expected to arrive in the country tomorrow ahead of Mwai Kibaki's state funeral. Running mate quagmire still is very much present as Azimio la Umoja presidential flag bearer Raila Odinga has appointed a 7-member panel to vet and advise him on the best suited person to appoint as a running mate. The panel is expected to conclude the assignment on or before 10th of May this year.
Peter Njenga, Archbishop Zacchaeus Okoth, Senator Enoch Wambua, Michael Laura, Dr. Noah Wekesa, Sheikh Mohammed Khalifa and Beatrice Eskulmoy. The panel shall have Elizabeth Mayo as its Secretary General and shall elect its chairperson. The panel is expected to reach its decision through consensus by assisting and advising Raila Odinga regarding the nomination of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Deputy Presidential candidate.
Now that is a development coming in the wake of Wiper leaders' utterances that have been captured on various media outlets, saying that he is he's still the best bet for Azimio and he shouldn't be asked to actually apply for the position of running mate. What does this mean for the current political scene? We'll be keeping tabs on that. Now, still on politics, the United Democratic Alliance has issued certificates to aspirants who won at the party primaries for various elective positions. The William Ruto-led party will field 42 gubernatorial candidates and 44 senators in the 47 counties. And as Gishoke Washira reports, the candidates are optimistic they will trounce their opponents in the August 9th general elections.
The Hustler Center turned into a jubilation zone as aspirants who had won the UDA party primaries received their certificates. Aspirants from across the country, accompanied by their supporters, celebrated what they termed as democracy and fairness in the party.
Nomination ilikuwa kali sana, mashindano ilikuwa ya hali ya juu
nilikuwa napambana na yule alikuwa incumbent ama yule mbunge wa wakati huu, lakini wananchi wakaamua, wakasema ni mimi wangetaka, kulingana na vile walisikia sera zangu.
Mambo ya siasa za tribe zimeisha na zimepitwa na wakati. Sisi tupige kura mahali watu wote na Wakenya wote wapo. Kwa hivyo mimi ninawaomba watu wote wa Ukambani tusidanganyike tena.
Kwa hivyo sisi ni wale watu ambao tuna advocate kwa suti. Kwa hivyo sasa kuanzia sasa ni suti. Saa ile vita iko ni vita ya UDA na Azimio. Hiyo ndio ile vita sasa itakuwa kwa ground.
I feel so happy. I feel so ready to deliver for UDA and the people of Kitui Central Constituency.
The UDA party will field 42 candidates for governor's position, 44 candidates for senatorial position, and 45 candidates for county-woman representative. 274 candidates for position of member of National Assembly also received the nomination certificates. The UDA party will also be fielding 1,340 candidates in the 1,450 wards across the country.
Tunajua tuna kazi kwa sababu kumngoa Ngojiri wa Mbugu mwenye ndiye mbunge sasa, akiwa anaungwa mkono na chama kinachotawala cha Jubilee, sio kazi rahisi. Lakini tunatosha. Tunaona tuna uwezo, tuna ujuzi, na pia tuna uzoefu wa masuala ya kisiasa.
Nafurahi sana kwamba nimepata tiketi sasa. Kinyang'anyiro ilikuwa ngumu, lakini sasa tunaenda sasa kinyang'anyiro ya pili kuhakikisha kwamba Kutunyi amerudi nyumbani.
Uchaguzi wetu ulikuwa uchaguzi unafaa sana na viongozi ambao walifaa wakapatikana. Kwa hivyo nataka kuambia wale wote ambao wamepata cheti chao siku ya leo, hongera. Wacha sasa kazi ianze, ni ya miezi 3.
The issuance of certificates to aspirants now turns them to candidates. What lies ahead now is for each and every candidate to hit the ground and get the votes for his bid and votes for the party leader, William Ruto.
Now, the Kenyan government is rooting for close collaboration of institutions of higher learning in the Commonwealth to boost the quality of learning in Africa. Interior Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i, who opened the Commonwealth Education Ministers meeting in Nairobi, said it is time universities in Africa gained top recognition in the world ranking.
Commonwealth Education Ministers Forum under the theme Rethinking Education for Innovation, Growth and Sustainability Post-COVID-19 kicked off in Nairobi with Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i, who represented the President, challenging the Western world to do more in assisting African members attain high-quality education.
While sustained basic education reforms in many of our countries are creating a solid foundation to strengthen the education work linkage, the higher education system is in crisis in this regard. The key challenges are growing demand, limited resources, and a lack of relevance to national development needs.
With the conference coming after governments worldwide closed schools to help slow the spread of COVID-19, the ministers have been urged to leverage on innovation, particularly technology, solution to enhance digital transformation across the Commonwealth.
When schools closed during the COVID-19 pandemic, most countries used online platforms to deliver education. However, data from UNICEF and the World Bank indicates that primarily because of a lack of connectivity at home, only a quarter of the school children worldwide were able to access meaningful online learning.
And it will be wonderful. Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha, who's also the chair of the conference, noted the need to build a resilient education system that can withstand shocks to minimize and protect learning disruption in an event of a crisis.
Identify persistent bottlenecks preventing the achievement of the goal and implications of the future education sector, including for learners in the workforce. Given that the COVID-19 pandemic will assess the stocks of schools, closures, economic recession, learning recovery, and other education outcomes.
Now off to the counters, where the slow uptake of COVID-19 vaccines has led to mass wastage of the vaccines since the Ministry of Health announced a reduction in COVID cases. In Migeri County, over 2,000 COVID vaccines are reported to have expired in the last 2 months.
Migori County's Health Promotion Officer James Oguk regretted that the uptake of the COVID-19 vaccines had reduced with the low infection rates announced by the government. Oguk said they have enhanced vigilance to reduce the wastage and incorporated community health workers to sensitize people on the need to take the COVID-19 vaccine.
Should not lose any vaccine. That will be disastrous because these vaccines are, some are support. We also spend money as a government, and those are taxpayer money. So the community should realize that the moment vaccines expire, it is them who have lost, not the government.
Elsewhere, the increasing number of bodies dumped in Kamulu River is causing anxiety for residents. They said 3 bodies have been retrieved from the river in the last 5 months and urged police to beef up security in the area and investigate the matter.
Vitendo kama hii tunataka watu wachukuliwe hatua ya kinidhamu sababu na kisheria sababu watu kama hao wanaleta hatari kwa area.
On conservation, the Chief Conservator of Forests, Julius Kamau, said the country has achieved a 10% forest cover. He, however, urged the general populace not to be complacent and continue planting trees to enjoy the health and economic benefits of trees.
I'm happy to say that our tree cover today, as we speak today, is 12.13%, meaning in terms of the constitutional obligation, we have surpassed the 10% tree cover. But we still need to do so more because the 10% tree cover cannot be able to sustain the lives and livelihoods of Kenyans.
Meanwhile, a family in Naivasha is demanding justice over the murder of their 24-year-old daughter, allegedly over her stand on lesbianism. The family termed the death of Sheila Adhiambo as painful, with police yet to arrest any suspect a week after she was found lying in a pool of blood in her house in Karatina, Nyeri.
Haki tendeke tu. Haki tendeke. Unajua kwa mtu wote inafaa ujue kwa nini alikufa. At that tender age inatakana ujue kwa nini mtoto wako amefariki. Na inaweza kuwa vizuri kama justice imetendeka kwa huyo mtoto.
Me as a mother, I demand justice. Just justice for my daughter. Justice. I hope justice will be found.
We pray that the demand for justice by that family of Sheila there is going to be met, as justice delayed is justice denied. Now we cross over to the business world, where narcotic drugs, especially marijuana, ethanol, drones and sex toys are the most smuggled goods in the country. This is according to the Kenya Revenue Authority Chief Customs Manager for the Nairobi region, Bernard Kibaki, who says in the first quarter of this year, the taxman has intercepted goods worth about 41.2 million shillings.
According to data from Kenya Anti-Counterfeit Agency, illicit trade robs the country of more than 153 billion shillings annually. Despite steps taken towards combating illicit trade and the existence of the multi-agency team, the restricted and prohibited goods still find their way into the country. The Kenya Revenue Authority Chief Manager, Nairobi Customs, Bernard Kibaki, says narcotic drugs including marijuana, ethanol, drones and sex toys are the most smuggled goods into the country.
KRA is using the digital space also to gather intelligence to know who are the importers and the sources of these items. Luckily enough is that all these items that are imported through the digital space still come into the country through the borders, that is either the airport, the seaport, or the land borders, and once we have information and we are able to intercept them.
In the last 3 months, the taxman seized goods worth about 41.2 million shillings at various one-stop border points and at JKIA.
We've also invested a lot in technology, particularly the scanners and the K9 dogs that are able to sniff these items, and we are able to intercept them.
KRA says importation of dual products for normal industrial use and military use is posing a challenge in the fight against illicit trade, since they can easily be misused if they fall in the wrong hands. The dual products include items imported for medical purposes, X-rays machines that contain radioactive substances, and ammonia fertilizer, which can also be used to make bombs and other weapons. KBC says together with other agencies, they have put in place enforcement measures to ensure persons importing the items have licenses and relevant documents.
Kenya is wooing Swedish investors to tap into the country's fledgling ICT sector as the two countries seek to deepen trade ties. Trade Cabinet Secretary Betty Maina says the two countries have set up a joint technical working committee to address barriers to trade. CS Maina further says various IT Swedish companies plan to set up their African base in the country.
Trade between Kenya and Sweden stands at 10 billion shillings annually, with the trade heavily skewed in favor of Sweden. Kenya imports dairy machinery and communication equipment from Stockholm, while Nairobi exports mainly agriculture products like coffee, flowers and tea to Sweden. Last year, Kenya and Sweden agreed to establish a joint technical and economic cooperation team with a view to enhance bilateral trade and investments between the two countries and to implement development cooperation in a more structured way.
East African embassies in Sweden are very keen to ensure that those collaborations take place. So reach out to government and let us know what you need.
Sweden is seeking to increase investment by enhancing their presence in the service industry through the ICT sector. A number of firms from Sweden have shown interest in setting base in Kenya as part of their global expansion strategy.
It's also service exports. It's not only products, but in this area there is a lot of opportunity for there's so much development that needs to be done, and Kenya really has a good workforce there, so I believe that's an area that should be further explored.
The companies range from fintech, agritech and edutech firms.
So for us it's much more to try to establish even more networking, more collaboration, and try to find the specific cases.
Sweden says it will tap the 18 billion shillings European Union Development Kitty to support e-commerce in the region and increase trade between East Africa and the EU.
What can they give us? You know, it's trading of goods and services, but it's also about solving our own problems.
Sweden is further urging the East African region to integrate ICT in their operations to remove non-tariff bottlenecks.
Still keeping up with matters business, the ongoing construction of the Dongo Kundu Special Economic Zone will drive Kenya's manufacturing agenda. The project is strategically designed to improve Kenya's competitiveness as an investment destination as well as expand the country's export portfolio.
Plans are underway to set up 3-class special economic zones in Kenya. The Dongo Kundu Special Economic Zone in the Greater Mombasa region, sitting on 3,000 square kilometers, is expected to create 2 million new jobs. The Lamu Special Economic Zone on 700 square kilometers is backed to create 1 million new jobs, while the Kisumu Special Economic Zone on 700 square kilometers is expected to create 1 million new jobs. Officials say the Dongo Kundu Special Economic Zone will leverage key transport networks to drive the manufacturing agenda, promote exports and trade as well as the economy.
I think the importance of this project is important not only for Kenya but also for the whole region, and we very much hope that in cooperation with the Kenyan government,
investors or business people who have been going to do their shopping in Dubai, in China, in Thailand, in Turkey, they will be coming to source their goods here.
Despite this, the thorny issue of resettlement for the affected over 1,500 people popped up, as well as sensitized residents on opportunities to be created by the Dongo Kundu Special Economic Zone.
NLC has already computed the schedules for compensation, and funds are available for compensation. What is happening?
As Kenya, we have been undertaking projects in this coastal region, and one of the most important ones is the Dongo Kundu bypass. As you are aware, we have already done the section connecting the package 1, which was connecting us to Meritini, and we are now undertaking the project from Mwai to Mteza, which has one of the longest bridges in the country, around 1.44 kilometers.
The Special Economic Zone is expected to attract 200 billion shillings worth of direct investment and create over 100,000 direct jobs.
Now, the government is urging players in the animal product value chain to adopt effective and efficient food safety systems for quality food. Agriculture Chief Administrative Secretary Lawrence Omuhaka says gaps in the implementation of safe food provisions are the key in attaining food sustainability amid growing demand for food. Owing to diversity fueled by demand, concerns are being raised over food safety, with growing fears of food contamination caused by poor preparation, handling and storage that causes foodborne illnesses and injury. Agriculture Chief Administrative Secretary Lawrence Omuhaka says there is need for adoption of policies by those in the value chain that would bridge gaps in the implementation of safe food provisions to enhance food security.
The policies that boost food safety lessen the burden on our healthcare system that is already reeling from the effects of COVID-19, malaria, TB and other communicable diseases. The government is happy that some of our biggest producers, led by Kenchik, have perfected this policy in their production value chain.
I believe it is our role to actively participate in tackling issues that plague our country and the global society at large.
Speaking during the launch of Kenchik's new strategic plan on food security and commitment to animal welfare in East and Central Africa, the Chief Administrative Secretary underscored the need for those in the food value chain to adhere to international standards to enhance food safety and access to the export market.
Especially the food production systems. Indeed, Chapter 5, Part 2 of the Kenyan Constitution 2010 obligates the states protect biodiversity. This provision makes the Kenyan Constitution one of the most progressive in matters of animal welfare protections.
Now, the African Union, through its risk capacity program, will pay 5.8 billion shillings in claims to drought-stricken countries in East and Southern African countries. Now, ARC Chief Executive Officer Leslie Ndulovu says the insurer is currently assessing the impact of drought in the two regions before processing payments. Kenya will not be compensated after it stopped paying for the premiums in 2017, despite ratifying the ARC treaty in 2013.
The Horn of Africa is currently undergoing prolonged drought, which has left close to 30 million people facing starvation. The Southern African region is also facing widespread flooding, which has degenerated into a human catastrophe, affecting millions of people. The African Risk Capacity, which is an African Union specialized SEZ, is now assessing the impact of the natural crisis in order to avail funds to mitigate the crisis.
We estimate that we will pay more than $50 million in claims. The reason why I give it to you as an estimate is that for most countries in Eastern and Southern Africa, the agricultural season is still underway and is going to end in May or in June. So we will only know the full extent of the claims at that point, because if there are drought conditions in a country and the drought conditions are getting worse, then this increases the size of the claim, and conversely, if the drought conditions are getting better, then this reduces the size of the claim.
ARC Chief Executive Officer Leslie Ndlovu said the organization has also expanded insurance products to include humanitarian, agencies and individual groups. Among organizations expected to receive claims in this cycle is the Kenya Livestock Insurance Program. Ndlovu says claim assets, which is to be completed by June this year, will provide immediate assistance to affected regions.
What we are proposing through ARC is a more proactive approach where the cost of natural disasters is pre-financed via insurance, such that when the disaster occurs, we are able to pay the insurance claim within 10 business days, thereby providing immediate liquidity to the government to be able to respond.
ARC, established in 2012, has so far paid out claims amounting to 11.5 billion shillings. Out of the 35 African countries that have so far signed the ARC treaty, only 13 countries have taken up insurance covers against natural disasters.
On that note, we head to the sporting arena where Kenya's Deaf Athletics head coach Samuel Kibet is confident that the Kenyan team will surpass last edition's medal haul at the 24th Summer Deaflympics in Brazil. Kibet says they're targeting to lower world records during the global event to be held from May 1st to the 15th in Brazil.
Kenya is hoping to collect more medals at this year's Deaflympics compared to last edition's event. In the 23rd Summer Deaflympics in Turkey in 2017, Kenya won 16 medals, 5 gold, 5 silver and 6 bronze medals. The team, comprising of 28 men and 18 women, has been at residential camp at the Mwai International Sports Center, Kasarani, since 4th of April.
Anything can happen during the competition, and when you put your assurance in the results, if things changes, you'll be surprised and you'll be shocked. But we have got all hopes from sprints up to marathon.
Simon Kibaki hopes to lower the times in the 5,000 and 10,000 meters. Lucas Wandia in the 3,000 meter steeplechase, Daniel Kiptum in the marathon, and John Koech in the 1,500 meters. Kenya is hopeful of collecting medals also in the sprints. Kenya will also field athletes in javelin, hammer and discus.
I feel we are ready, especially for the ladies, because the coach has been with us. We've learned different skill sets. We've done hill work, we've done speed work. We've also worked together with the coach to make sure that we have programs for everyone. I feel like we're all ready.
The team is scheduled to leave for Brazil later this week, with the first batch comprising of the women football team having arrived in Brazil on Tuesday evening.
Now, before we talk about our upcoming match, that is Manchester United, that is going to be taking on Manchester United versus Chelsea. Let's bring you up to speed with the results that we had yesterday, and these are as follows. So, in as far as yesterday's results are concerned, in the semi-final Champions League, we had Liverpool there, that is Klopp's team there, taking on Villarreal and scoring 2 against Villarreal that managed to score none. Then in the Italy Serie A, we had several games, including a match between Bologna and Inter, where Bologna scored 2 against one goal for Inter there. We have Atalanta and Torino ending up in a 4-4 draw in that particular match, the Italy Serie A, and Fiorentina, as well as Udinese there, where Udinese scored 4 against none by Fiorentina. Those are the results for the Italy Serie A yesterday. And as far as today is concerned, well, in the Europa League, the semi-final, we have RB Leipzig that is going to be taking on Rangers at 10 p.m. as well as West Ham taking on Frankfurt at the same time. That is 10 p.m. The Europa Conference League semi-final, we have Feyenoord and Marseille having a match at 10 p.m. while Leicester and Roma are equally going to be tackling it out at 10 p.m. Now, the match to watch is the match in as far as the Premier League, English Premier League is concerned, is between Manchester United and Chelsea. I don't know how Manchester United fans are going to treat the statement by interim boss Ralph Rangnick on Wednesday, where he confirmed that during this particular match tonight is that skipper Harry Maguire will not be in the game. and neither will be winger Jadon Sancho. Why? Maguire apparently has a knee injury, while Sancho has been ruled out on account of tonsillitis. We all know if Maguire, as far as I'm concerned, and this is my opinion, if Maguire is not playing, I think we stand a chance against Chelsea. At the same time, the team is not so happy on the other side when it comes to the Chelsea team. That is why, because they're going to be missing at the end of the season. Chelsea's Antonio Rudiger is going to be leaving the team. However, Tuchel maintains that, well, Chelsea is there to stay. Well, we're waiting to see who is going to be winning the bid to buy off that particular team. But for now, we can only wait up until tonight's match. All the best, team, as we meet up with Le Blues there. Viva Manchester United. That brings a cap Matt's news this morning. Remember, you can get further details on our website. That is www.kbc.co.ke. But we are not done and dusted. After 3 days of lying in state and giving Kenyans a moment to pay their last respects to the late President Mwai Kibaki, what next? Well, that question is going to be answered right here, right now. We take a quick break. We'll be right back.
That deaf kid as my own brother. You simply cannot keep him here and treat him as if he were your son.
I absolutely forbid you from referring to him like that. Don't get so worked up.
Get my son as well as my silence. And I make a profit from both.
For the sake of the whole family, you have to be mentally healthy and in control of your faculties. What happened yesterday cannot be repeated.
Can help you to get that kid out of the house. Then you can demand a whole lot more money, promising to return him.
They've stolen my money! All my money! All my money!
If it isn't ready by the time Adrian gets here, you'll be in real trouble with me.
Una nini?
Shida ya pesa.
Kama hii ndio nafikiri itakuwa sababu ya mimi kumsamehe Baji. Well, thank you, Mungu.
Mumeo unamfahamu, alipi deni.
Usimwambie kwamba nimelipa hilo deni. Na wala usimwambie chochote kunihusu. Mbona usimwambie mume wako? Si ndio mwenzako wa ndoa ama? Interview ilikuwa ya kulewa ama mlipewa pombe kama kazi?
This is the coziest bed I've ever slept in.
You feel good, but I don't like it.
Why would Gordon still keep this picture here? What reason could he have to keep it? You took away my dad's company, took away my mom's house and everything we owned. So don't pretend that you care.
Mr. Huang, you go in and rest. I'll wipe it clean for you.
You were one of my clients. How could I let you wash my car for me?
Is she sick? Hey, I asked you a question. Are you pregnant?
What?
Not in the house.
Kukadili fulani hapa mbaya. Kataivana. Wazi Arif.
Kat is back. She's in Kenya as we speak.
Wewe inaonekana unamjua mwanamke sana.
Moto. Huyu mwanamke ni moto wa kuotea mbali.
I asked you how much money you wanted so you can stay away from my daughter.
Go serious.
What plan do you have for your life?
Mwache saja mwe.
Believe it or not, this one here is Stephanie's boyfriend.
What?
By the way, naitwa Jonte.
To bring you
events on how the preparations ahead of the interment of the country's third president, Mwai Kibaki, is going on. And of course, we are also looking at other matters shaping the news in the country. And right about now, we just want to look at what has been reported across the newspapers this particular morning. I have with me the People Daily and the Daily Nation. Daily Nation on the headlines there, choosing to go the political side. Their headline reads, Raila to share power with the Chief Minister. I'll be taking you through that in just a bit. But let's stay with, what is happening in the country that the People Daily newspaper has chosen to highlight as the headline there on the front page of the People Daily. They have chosen to, in respect to the fallen hero, President Mwai Kibaki, retired President Mwai Kibaki, they've highlighted the special ceremony that happened in Parliament yesterday as members of Parliament were bidding goodbye to the fallen president. And the headline reads, United in Grief. Members of National Assembly held a special sitting and were unanimous. Kibaki was a leader like no other who mentored many of them. And I'd just like to take you to pages 6, 7, 8, and 9 that has just, covered this in detail before I bring in my colleague Regina Manyara to also tell us a bit about how this story may have been covered in other papers. And on page 6 there, we had, members of the National Assembly taking time to pen down what stood out for them about their relationship with the President, Mwai Kibaki. And outside, just a few, Member of Parliament for Navaholo constituency there, Emmanuel Wangwe, saying Kibaki was a charismatic leader who was not in a hurry to be the country's president. Yes, this is actually true. He vibed, was it 3 times before he actually got sworn in? We have nominated Member of Parliament Danita Gatti saying women of this country are proud of Kibaki as he supported women through maendeleo ya wanawake. Moitalelo Lekenta, Member of Parliament for Narok North, history will judge Kibaki kindly because he was the best the country ever had. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, saying Kibaki's decorated political career was birthed in 1963 when he won the Donholm Parliamentary seat, now known as Makadara constituency. And Nairobi Women Representative Esther Passaris saying Kibaki made Kenyans believe in the perception of governance change during his time. Of course, quite a good coverage there of what a Member of Parliament said yesterday concerning the Mwai Kibaki. Some of them had an opportunity to work very closely with him and had very personal, messages of condolences as they were bidding him farewell. Regina, it is indeed, a sad season for the country. A lot is being said about Mwai Kibaki, and what, he leaves behind. I don't know from your end, what is it that, you have for us?
Now, talking about what has been happening since Monday, Sefine, remember that the late president breathed his last on Friday last week, and it's been quite a week, especially even for the media, and I'm sure for the family and the country at large. So we have been televising, the special coverage in honoring the late president because he has been termed as a game changer in the country's economy. When he took over his first term, we had a jump in the economic growth to up until 700 billion shillings, and when he was leaving office, our economy was pegged at 1.3 trillion shillings. He also steered the country through the 2007-2008 post-election violence as well as the global meltdown then. And this is what has captured the scribes this morning in this particular daily that I'm sampling here, and this is the Standard, where the big read is Secrets of a Day Kibaki was sworn in at dusk. And yours truly, that is Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. We were at the thick of things, so to speak. Those who remember that day and what transpired is not a day we want to have a run-in with in future. And according to the then government spokesman, that is Dr. Alfred Mutua, who is governor now, he actually has gone into details to tell us what was happening on that particular day. So he says that at some point they were supposed to announce, and this was happening at the KICC. So Kivuitu there, who was the former ECK commissioner there, chair. He was to announce the results, but there was a bit of push and pull, especially from the opposing team, and that is none other than ODM. The persons in question during that particular tussle, it has already been fleshed out in this particular daily, included the current Deputy President William Ruto, but the ODM brigade was led by James Orengo, now Siaya Senator. So according to Dr. Alfred Mutua, who is a former government spokesman, who was right in the middle of what was happening on that fateful day. Yeah? So according to Mr. Kisia, and I want to read it out as is here, Sefin, it looks very dramatic. However, we know that it is a moment in history. Now, Philip Kisia, the former KICC chief executive, he's quoted here saying, when Mutua's call came, Kivuitu told me there was no way he was going to speak to that small boy. On the other side, Mishuki got impatient and grabbed hold of Mutua's phone. When Kivuitu gave me back my phone and angrily retorted, "Wapi hiyo meza yako?" he was so fed up that he couldn't see the table I had prepared for him to announce the results. It is then that he declared Kibaki the winner. This is a narrative as captured, a narrative given here by Dr. Alfred Mutua, the former government spokesman. And he further says that as Kivuitu was concluding his announcements, the ODM brigade led by James Orengo, now Senator, and Deputy President William Ruto stormed the venue, and with his bodyguard, they got the reporter to hide the tape in his socks. A fake tape was inserted and the camera in the camera as the ODM entered. They took the fake tape and the camera while we organized for the real tape to be taken to the basement where GSU officers were waiting to escort it to Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. For further details, you can either talk to someone who was working at the corporation then, who remembers that particular day, or better yet, you can get a copy of this particular daily. But that was the day that the win of that particular presidential election was announced in the evening and also sworn in at dusk. Indeed, secrets of the day, Kibaki was sworn in at dusk. Now, Safin, in regard to this particular matter, and that we also have in Kibaki's tenure, in Kibaki's legacy, the question of the disputed elections that threw Kenya into a tailspin, 2007-2008. While lying in state and in parliament, a few items were on display. They included his golf clubs, a favorite pen that he had, and also a book that was written detailing the mediation talks after the contested elections of 2007-2008. Some politicians and political analysts have come out and termed that particular state, 2007-2008, and the negotiations therein were actually the first proverbial handshake. I don't know what you have to say in regard to that matter.
Indeed, it was the first episode of the handshake. I would say that. I mean, it cannot, we cannot underestimate the fact that this season will go down history as a moment that we were tried and tested as Kenyans. Our union, our unity, the social fabric of the society was actually put to test. And what I like about the country and even the leaders then is how we managed to bounce back and get to where we are today. Because were it not for the wisdom of the leaders of the time, were it not for even the international players who came on board at that particular time, I don't think we would be sitting here and having this conversation, Ray, this particular morning. And I like that spirit about Kenya, just moving from that dark spot and getting to where we are today, and also always referring to that moment every time we're about to fall apart. We remind ourselves that we do not want to go back to 2007, 2008. So for us, it sends a message. We took it as a lesson, an experience that we do not want to go back to. much as it was ugly, much as it was painful, and it left others bleeding emotionally and physically, we choose to pick up the pieces and move on. And we hope that as we head to the next polls in August, this lesson will not be forgotten and will remain united regardless of the outcome of this particular election. I'd just like to update you also concerning the plans for his burial this coming Saturday on page 8 of the People Daily. You know, the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, actually highlights what has been happening, and he gives an assurance that the plans for tomorrow's state funeral and the interment of the country's third president, Mwai Kibaki, on Saturday are complete. Everything is in place. And I'd just like to quote something that he has said here concerning why this is actually something that has to move according to the script. He says, you know, the military doesn't leave anything to chance. Everything is prepared and planned, and we have a script by which we are going to conduct ourselves. So I want to ask those joining us on Friday and Saturday to understand that we are planning for 2 days. What we are planning for the 2 days is a state funeral which follows a particular protocol. The only protocol that will be allowed is that of the church that is going to conduct the mass. So everything is in order. Timelines are going to be observed. So everything has been put in place. But of course, one thing that also he says here is that the body of the late Mwai Kibaki is going to be ferried by road to his or their home on Saturday, and security is in check. They are going to ensure that all security protocols are observed. And just to shift gears, Ray, a little bit and look at the politics of the day also, as covered in this particular newspaper that really centers around the running mate factor. And I heard in one of the stories that you read earlier concerning that 7-member panel that Azimio la Umoja has picked to decide, you know, who is going to be Raila's number 2. And it's also highlighted on page 5 of the People Daily there, talking about this 7-member panel going to incorporate, you know, people drawn from the clergy and representatives of political parties who are going to interrogate the integrity and leadership experience of a suitable candidate before settling on the most qualified person. Ray, there is something that I think will interest you. They've said this even as the coalition invites individuals, underline the invite, so it's still open, interested in deputizing Raila, including those who have already shown interest, and they're expected to formally do so in writing and writing to the 7-member panel. So I do not know whether you fit the bill and you're interested.
Now that is bound to be quite interesting, that it's an open invite. If you deem yourself fit and you want to deputize Azimio la Umoja, you know, aspirant there for the presidency, well, you need to tender in your need to, and why. Show cause why, all right? Now, look, yes.
Moving on swiftly, right?
Yes, show cause why. And given that this development in setting up this particular panel, maybe we can highlight those members who have been elected to be in the panel that is going to advise, actually vet and advise Raila Odinga in picking up the running mate. This particular 7 panelists include Bishop Peter Njenga, Archbishop Zacchaeus Okoth, Kitui Senator Enoch Wambua, Michael Orwa, Noah Wekesa, Sheikh Mohammed Khalifa, and Beatrice Akul Mo. You know, these ones are the ones, the 7 people who are going to determine who Raila is going to pick at as a running mate. Also, Elizabeth Mayo, who is a member of Raila's campaign board, will be the panel's secretary, and the panel shall reach a decision through a consensus and elect its chairperson therein. Now, so far, in terms of those who have shown interest, we have none other than Kalonzo Musyoka there, as well as NARC Kenya's Martha Karua. 2 weeks, I think 2 weeks ago, we had a push by women leaders, political leaders in under the Azimio camp, you know, saying that, or rather suggesting that Raila should pick up Martha Karua on the fact that, you know, to have gender balance. On the other hand, as late as yesterday, Kalonzo has been quoted saying, "I shouldn't be asked to apply for a running mate position." And in other quarters, he has said that if Raila doesn't choose him as a running mate, he's bound to fail in his bid for the top position come August 9th. What is going to happen? Well, the dates have been set for this particular panel, and I would not want to be in their position, Safin.
Yeah, indeed, it is a tricky one.
It's a dicey situation.
It is. You know, when in this new wave of the gender agenda and women really pushing hard to have one of their own occupy that, seat. And they have numbers. Over 52% of the numbers actually are women in this particular country. And of course, the Daily Nation, Ray, actually has brought out another twist to this running mate factors. We are just about to close up this. And it goes ahead to say Raila to share power with Chief Minister. So Azimio la Umoja apparently has introduced a new position of Chief Minister in what the Daily Nation reports to be a strategy to manage a looming crisis, a fallout such as what you've alluded to in the event that it doesn't go Kalonzo's direction or Martha Karua's direction or whichever candidate's direction. How do they manage a fallout that may be quite disastrous ahead of the August polls? And just to take you through what this Chief Minister position is all about and why they are opting to use this to entice whoever will not be the preferred choice for number 2. It's actually a slot that will see the holder supervise and coordinate government functions, and is reportedly tailored to appease those jostling for running mate position, including Wiper party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and Kenya's Martha Karua, should they not be picked. So this development actually points out to the dilemma that the 7-member panel is actually already going through, that in the event they do not settle on somebody and they are a crucial player in Azimio la Umoja, how do they manage that particular crisis? That story, you can find it on page 8 of the Daily Nation this morning.
Indeed, quite that. And when you're talking about matters of politics, it's not just about the presidency and the running mate issue that is giving people a problem, or rather a headache, sleepless nights in the political scene. The drama, or rather the intricate details about the gubernatorial situation, as well as actually the leadership of Nairobi County. We saw what happened last week there with Timothy Wanyonyi stepping down, so to speak, in favor of Polycarp Igathe. Now, talks from this particular daily, and I'm talking about what has been sampled here by the Star this morning, being the 28th of April. It says that Sakaja, that is UDA governor aspirant Sakaja there, comes out to say that, I'm in talks with Team Wanyonyi. We wonder what would be brewing there. Remember, further details in regard to the stories that have been making headlines are still available on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. I'm sure majority of you want to find out exactly what are those talks in regard to Nairobi County. On the other hand, we also had Mike Sonko, the former governor of Nairobi County, taking on IBC and also appearing before the court, saying that IBC has no mandate actually to stop him from vying for the Mombasa gubernatorial seat there. But we'll be waiting to see. Remember, what we can do, especially you and I as Wanjiko, is vote diligently. Now, that particular story in regard to the leadership in Nairobi County has been fleshed out here on page 8. And quoted there is that Johnson Sakaja has hinted that he had talks with Team Wanyonyi in regard to working together ahead of the general election. And the aspirant said he had met with the legislature on several occasions, and their teams will be discussing the matter, with the details set to be revealed soon as they are finalized, or rather sealed. As we say, it's the time to see who is getting into a partnership with who to what end. And on that note, we bring in the headlines to a close, but not too long. We're going to be talking about matters of finance, or rather fiscal policy and economy under Kibaki's tenure. Do not go away. We'll be right back. Safi?
Indeed, it is time for us to take a breather, but it's a program that is specially laid out for you, a lot that you're going to be focusing on as you learn more about who this man, the late former President Mwai Kibaki, was and what he leaves behind. After this break, we will be taking you through his cabinet, so don't go too far.
Burn your legacy.
Baby Boy Smith Jr. stepping up to Contra. What the hell? Who is that? There's been a hell of a super kick. It's Pillman. It's Pillman Jr.
Heart Foundation.
Weighing in this evening at 190 pounds, from Atlanta.
That deaf kid as my own brother. You simply cannot keep him here and treat him as if he were your son.
I absolutely forbid you from referring to him like that. Don't get so worked up.
Get my son as well as my silence. And I make a profit from both.
For the sake of the whole family, you have to be mentally healthy and in control of your faculties. What happened yesterday cannot be repeated.
Can help you to get that kid out of the house. Then you can demand a whole lot more money, promising to return him.
They've stolen my money! All my money! All my money!
If it isn't ready by the time Adrian gets here, you'll be in real trouble with me.
Born Emilio Stanley Mwai Kibaki on 15th November 1931 in Gaturene village of Othaya in present-day Nyeri County, Kibaki worked as a lecturer at Makerere University in Uganda. Kibaki returned to Kenya to become KANU's executive officer and helped draft Kenya's independence constitution. In 1962, Kibaki was elected the Member of Parliament for Donholm constituency, present-day Makadara. Subsequently, he was appointed Assistant Minister for Finance and Chairman of the Economic Planning Commission in 1963. He played a key role in drafting the famous 1965 sensational paper number 10 on African socialism and its application to planning in Kenya. He would be promoted to become Minister for Commerce and Industry in 1966.
Well, we used to sell about 10% of our total manufactured products to Tanzania. As it is now, with the border closed, we are not selling very much. We're still selling some. But we have found other markets. So the adjustment has been a little bit painful, but we've made it.
And later Minister for Finance and Economic Planning in 1969 after he was re-elected to Parliament to represent Donholm constituency. Following what he said to be pressure from his closest rival in the 1969 elections, Ms. Jael Mbogo, Kibaki moved his political base from Nairobi to Othaya in 1974. He attributed this to what he termed calls from the people of Othaya. He was overwhelmingly elected Othaya MP in 1974, getting re-elected to Parliament in 1979, 1983, 1988, 1992, 1997, 2002 and 2007. When Daniel Arap Moi succeeded Jomo Kenyatta as the country's president in 1978, Kibaki was named Kenya's vice president but retained his position as finance minister. He was moved to the Ministry of Home Affairs in 1982. A fallout with President Moi in March 1988 saw Kibaki demoted from the vice presidency and moved to the Ministry of Health as minister. Despite the fallout with Moi, Kibaki would remain loyal to the president and the ruling party KANU. Hence, it came as a surprise for many when he resigned from government in December 1991, days after the repeal of Section 2A of the Constitution, which restored multi-partyism in Kenya. His resignation would then see him form the Democratic Party, DP, with which he used to vie for presidency in 1992 against Moi, Kenneth Matiba and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Kibaki came in third. He ran for presidency again in 1997, this time around finishing second behind Moi and becoming the leader of the official opposition in 1998. Mwai Kibaki would give the presidency another shot in 2002, this time around boosted by a host of other opposition parties under the National Alliance Rainbow Alliance. And truth to the saying, that time is the charm. On 27 December 2002, Kibaki and NARC registered a landslide victory over KANU with 62% of the votes compared to his competitor Uhuru Kenyatta's 31%. The win brought an end to KANU's 4 decades rule since independence. Kibaki got re-elected in 2007 for his second and final term as the president of Kenya. Mwai Kibaki passed away on the 22nd of April 2022.
Good morning. If you're tuning in, this is still KBC Channel 1 on Good Morning Kenya, and I'm Regina Manyara. We continue with a special coverage of the lives and times of the late President Mwai Kibaki. We're going to be looking at what to expect come Friday when the state, we're going to be having a state funeral, and government has made the 29th a holiday to allow you and I actually participate in that. Yesterday, the chair of the committee and also the cabinet secretary Interior, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, indicated that it's all systems go at the Nyayo Stadium. We're going to be giving you details of that and so much more. Now, in eulogizing the late president, so much has been said, and even economists have jumped onto that particular bandwagon and termed the late president as an astute leader and one who was keenly focusing in leapfrogging Kenya's economy to great heights. Have we seen the achievements and Kibaki's tenure in as far as matters of economy are concerned? So better yet to take us through this conversation and look at matters of economy during Kibaki's tenure is none other than CPA David Kingo of 14F Consulting. Good morning, sir, and thank you for your time.
Thanks too for the opportunity.
Let's start off with the numbers, and numbers don't lie.
Yes.
When Kibaki was taking up office, we were struggling, in as far as the economy is concerned. concerned. By the end of 2007-2008, I think we had an economy of around 700 billion, which was said to be actually double than what he inherited after the Mwai era. From where you sit, what do you think Kibaki did right to allow this growth in such a short period in his first term?
I guess what happened with Kibaki first is to appreciate that economic development are based on models. And we have seen politicians talk about models, and that is entirely what Kibaki came up with. Because when we look at just a small history, just before Kibaki, then we joined his tenure. There was sectional papers, I think number 1 of after election, pre-colonial, how we would harness the resources that we've acquired from the colonialists and utilize them for our own economic growth. Then when Kibaki came in, they developed I think called economic recovery strategy of wealth and employment creation. They had a target on economic growth rates they wanted, and then the quick win projects and quick win target that they wanted to do to ensure that economic growth progresses without any backstops. Then after that, he came up with the Vision 20 that had around 3 pillars. So the adoption of economic models is what has seen Kibaki change the economy from ERC, Economic Recovery Strategy, then to Vision 2030. All that models is what has brought that change that we were able to see. Because the blueprints were very specific. Be the macro, be the micro, be the projects, be the monetary policy, be the fiscal policy, were all encrypted in those blueprints. And all even institutions and state agencies were set to work under that particular framework. And that's why we were able to achieve that growth within that particular period, despite the political fluctuations that were there. Yes.
So, Kingo, do you think it's also because of, Mwai Kibaki's background in finance that also helped him to have this kind of vision for the country? Did it play a key role?
Of course, basically it would play because he would have an overview of how to run a government or an economic system in a government. But anyway, this is a political system. We put these people in this position through a political process. But of course, then politics and economics are one particular discipline that cannot be separated. So I get the value out of economics in him, made him appreciate how to run a government. And basically, he would be at the center of the process, having knowledge about how things would work, as compared to any other leader who has economic discipline that is different from economics. But basically, it depends with the people around you and how they appreciate that economic model really make change to a country. So his background in economics might have really helped a bit, but I guess we place someone there through political process, and what we really need is the economic goodwill and political goodwill to change an economy, and that's what made Kibaki perform the way he did.
Now, talking about Vision 2030 that was inherently anchored during Kibaki's tenure, we have under 8 years to the deadline, Vision 2030. From where you sit as an economist, do you think we'll have achieved what has been envisioned under that particular blueprint?
Everybody in this country should be able to understand or to know, are we on track, are we out of track? When the Vision 2030 was developed, then there were subsequent medium-term plans. We used to have, 2012, something.
Actually, we're in the fourth medium term.
Yes. So we would see them and we would hear about them. Remember, these particular blueprints were also based on United Nations economic targets. We used to have about Millennium Development Goals, and everybody could know about Millennium Development Goals. That would tell you, do we know where we are? We've gone to Sustainable Development Goals. Very few professionals would tell you how many Sustainable Development Goals we have. So that one is the first indicator that we may not be on track to this particular process. But then what I would say is this. What Kibaki did, after creating a framework for us to arrive at Vision 2030 and setting the basis, of course the economy had to blast at some point, because we have so many things running together, all many cards being jangled around, and they want to be consolidated. So the consolidation might have missed because of economic forces here and there, and then we've lost track. So basically, we might be on track, but because of the economic bust and things getting out of hand, because of the many processes that are running, so we might not be on track. But if they are brought back together, we've done a lot. So if it is consolidated in a focused way, then we will still be Vision 20. But of course, the IRAs can arrive at 40 or we can arrive earlier. Yes.
I like the way you're being politically correct. Yes. That we are neither going to fail, we're not necessarily, we are already there. It's just that we may not get it at 100% because of past failures. But we have time to correct in the next 8 years. This also brings the question, let me digress and focus on now. If you talk about the Vision 2030, we also see elements of those objectives and the pillars that were focused on actually are almost similar to what Uhuru's legacy is all about.
Yes.
The Big Four agenda that was given a timeline of up to 2022. Now 2022 is already here.
Yes.
The critics who've come out and say that we really do not have tangible results to show under this particular pillar.
Yes.
From where you sit, have we arrived? Did we arrive, or are we yet to arrive?
I think I'd say that it's a debatable situation, because for an economy to grow, remember Kibaki said Vision 2030. This particular blueprint was even to succeed him. After he gets out of power, the blueprint still remains. So what changes is the person at the top, the presidency. The other frameworks still remain around. The models, the project that's supposed to be done still remains around. So when we talk about the Big Four agenda, of course there are subsets of the Vision 2030. Well, the Vision 2030 had 3 pillars. One was social, just and cohesive society. Then we have a political system, then we have an economic system. When you want a just and a cohesive society, then of course judiciary comes in, the quality of life, how we live, the quality of business, the quality of work that we do. All that one rides on the system that's not changing. The presidency is changing, but the system down there is not changing. So what might happen even after Uhuru leaves, the blueprints that talk about the Big Four agendas still remains. Because if we have said we need affordable housing, for example, it will not be a click of a button. We need an affordable housing or you come from Machako, then within a month you have a unit to rent. No, it doesn't work like that. The conception stage might take years even. And even the final stage becomes a bit faster. So they will succeed Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. So what matters is the framework that still runs over to the next president. How will they sustain those particular objectives? Because when we drop them down and we start again, we still crash what the presidency has done. And remember, resources are put to this particular process. Yes.
Now, let me take you back to the economic aspect in as far as the pillars are concerned. The World Bank indicated that some of the stalling projects are around 40% and take up at least 9 trillion shillings.
Yes.
Talking about funding. And if we look at, issues of funding the projects under Kibaki's tenure, he opted for his government to source funds locally and not incur external debt.
Yes.
Now here we find ourselves, we're looking at a public debt of around 8.2 trillion shillings as at the end of 2021. We have stalled projects that are valued at around 9 trillion shillings. In this model, why did it work for Kibaki and why isn't it working for us? Where do we deviate?
Of course, what happened with Kibaki, I'm told, when Kibaki was almost become a president, the banking system was not really there so much. For you to withdraw money, we were told that you were to tell the bank that I'll come for my money tomorrow, or that they can prepare your cash. So that one tells you the structure of banking system that Kibaki was adopting. So when you come to internal borrowing, perhaps it was a strategy by the presidents to ensure that because commercial banks have come up, he has agreed, let us have commercial banks, that he can enhance the monetary policy. But the people who are supposed to borrow from these banks, remember these are commercial banks which make money out of interest. The people who are supposed to borrow from these commercial banks are not there. Title deeds, I think they were not as many as they are today. The logbooks were not as many as they are today.
And also we did not have formal people. A majority of people were not formally employed.
Yes, and the businesses that are there today were not there at that time. The market that consolidated and we call them a business were not there. So these commercial banks have come. So where do they make money? If they don't make money, they will outrightly collapse. So Kibaki decides, let me borrow from these commercial banks. I give them an interest. Then after some time, because I get this money very fast, invest in the economy, I will get new businesses coming up. Then now I'll tell commercial banks, I don't want to borrow from you. Now go and lend the people that we have created out there. So it was a short term to change the economy. That's why we were able to survive at that particular period. But Kibaki really also focused on external debt service to revenue ratio to make sure he has a clique of external borrowing. Because at the end of his term, the first term, always we were almost to crowd out the private sector because of these commercial banks lending to the government. But of course, it turned it the other side. I think that was the strategy, why it worked in the short run. It will not work in the long run for any government entity. Yes.
Now, we've talked about borrowing, and that is a headache that we're all grappling with, especially you persons who are in matters finance and looking at where we are in as far as our economy. Well, we're looking at government intending to spend 3.3 trillion shillings, and the question, where are you getting this money? So we have a deficit, and the government intends now, and I saw a similarity in, less borrowing from the internal market and going domestic in this particular finance bill.
Yes.
What do you think has informed Ukur Yatani to this kind of direction, to take this direction?
I think what happens basically because, and I still mention this for a first, but when Kibaki came in, we said he went in the short run to borrow internally, that he can trigger the economy inside. Now then I will still say, perhaps this presidency wanted to borrow externally in the short run to trigger internal development. But then, of course, we were met by economic shocks.
Yes.
That's why we are not able to reverse the car back to stability. Yeah. So I think that might have been an issue where we still have sustained external borrowing. And remember, when the economy is struggling, it is suicidal to come back and borrow internally. Because the money that is in circulation is the money that people are borrowing from commercial banks around. So if the government comes to the commercial bank and says, instead of lending to the public, give me this money. So if David was supposed to go and get a loan from a commercial bank, then he will not be given. So we'll have killed the entire economy.
Yes.
So in this particular short-term space, that the government wanted to borrow externally, improve infrastructure, improve national output, we are caught up in a situation where the economy is not stabilizing with the same speed. So to take the car back to the road is taking time. But of course we will be there. Because the budget that we've seen, they are aggressively trying to take that particular turn. And that will say we have around 9.7 trillion project that are stalled. It means they are trying to face this project to turn the vehicle back to track. Of course, it takes time based on the new economic model that might come, but then we hope for the best. I know we are in a catch-22 situation. If we turn back, it crashes. If we continue in the same position of external, but it still crashes.
We are doomed if we do, and we are doomed if we don't.
Yes.
Now, trying to get out of this particular situation where we find ourselves, we have the case of the 20 billion shillings that are loan that has been approved, or rather waiting now formal approval by IMF. What is your take in regard to this?
I think what matters most is that I'll go deep into economics and tell you there is a model we call it Arostostos.
Arostostos. It sounds like that meal, Arosto.
Yes, Arosto economic model. It says that economy develops the way a plane operates. Then we have preparation for takeoff, preconditions for takeoff, then it takes off. So we are trying to do preconditions for takeoff. We want to take off. So these loans, they will come, they will do projects, but the plane will still shake a bit because we are the preconditions for takeoff stage. So the borrowing is good, but where is it going? Because if you build, because when you look at, even just to catch up a bit about Kibaki, the economic recovery strategy and wealth creation blueprint was saying we need a dual carriage from Kisumu, from Mombasa to Malaba. And that one was happening. So when it is done, it is a one-off. If it was done by borrowing of 20 billion from IMF and it is done, it's already done. So all the businesses that grow along from Mombasa to Malaba, they are new businesses, they are new tax base, they are new opportunities, they are new employment creations. So altogether, they are able to pay that particular 20 billion over the duration that is given. So the most unfortunate thing that we might be facing, if we have this 20 billion, where are we taking it? What is the expected economic return from this particular project? And when is it going to come? Yes.
Good question.
Yes.
On that note, I'd want to rope in my colleague on the other side of the studio, Safin. We have been speaking math there, matters of the economy, looking at where we are and trying to see what we can borrow from Kibaki's tenure when it comes to matters of fiscal policy, as well as focusing on key sectors, infrastructure there, education and health. Maybe you can tell us who you have on the other end and what we'd expect from that other side of the studio, Safin.
Yes, indeed. We are going to be, moving on with this particular, just conversation of looking at the legacy of the country's third president, Emilio Stanley Mwai Kibaki, and I'll be engaging John Murage. John has quite an interesting, story with the country's third president. They, together, he was part of a movement that founded the Democratic Party that saw former President Mwai Kibaki began his journey into presidency. That was way back. But we'll be talking about his political side, how he started the Democratic Party, what was the vision, and what actually propelled him to get to where he got in just a bit. But just to, throw in a question to David, Regina, concerning the economy, because what you were discussing even earlier when you began that conversation was how he managed to boost the economy and what might have led to this particular success. I'm just curious to know more about this because from where I sit, Kibaki had a rocky start for both his first term and his second term, economically speaking. The first term he took over power when the GDP growth rate was discouragingly low, below 1%. And of course, even the revenue collection was, comparatively low at that particular time. Donors were not even, friendly to us as a country. In his second term, he takes over, and then we get into that post-election season, which actually occasioned an economic downturn. But by the time he was leaving in 2013, if you look at the numbers by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, he left the economy was growing at 7.1%. I mean, how did he manage to achieve, this particular high economic growth rate? What were some of the reforms that stood out for you, David?
Basically, what I mentioned, maybe I go deeper in actualization or operationalization of this particular model that Kibaki came in. Kibaki model was what we call that development is demand-driven. What do we say? There are two models that are adopted by economists. One is a supply-driven economic model. The other one we call economic-driven model. So Kibaki used to have a very strong ministry that was called Ministry of State for Planning and Development. I want to take you from the village to the President's Economic Advisory Team. So the people would sit and say, we want, and the person who was in charge in that particular district, for example, would say, what do we want in this particular area? What is the best project that can uplift the people here? Then people would say, borehole, no. We don't want a borehole here. We want a school. So schooling, of course, the enrollment from primary to secondary was still a challenge. And even from class 1 to class 8 was still a challenge. Then those people would come up with their own project that they want. They are demanding, this is what we want here. Then a blueprint would be made from the district, the province to the presidency. Then a budget to be dropped down based on that particular model. So people were able to get projects that they were demanding, that they wanted. So because of facing the masses through an economic structure, the economy was able to grow that particular fast. Because what would happen on the other side of a supply-driven model, when a politician will stand up and say, I will come here and build a road. Who said we want a road? Perhaps we wanted a water. We wanted centers of excellence. So it is the people who said what they wanted. And that's why we were able to change within a very short duration of period. The other aspect Kibaki adopted, we don't need to speak much when it comes to economic model. We just need to say, we need centers of excellence in every sub-county to improve education level. Then they would be there. They would be operationalized and they would be there. We need to reduce the control of budget from the presidency to the structures. Then the CDF would be there. So all these structures were meant to ensure the economy is driven from the ministers downward, not from the presidency perspective. Yes, I think that's why we were able to shift very fast on economic growth. Then also the country was in need of an economic growth process and framework. So the people received it very positively. The people were eagerly and hardworking to create new businesses for taxation. There were new opportunities for everybody. Banks came, employment came, universities came, there were so many. So everybody was set to a mindset, what we call civic consciousness, that we are in economic growth process and everybody stands to be counted. And the presidents always talked about good morals, character, and hardworking. Yes. I think I've not heard Kibaki say, I want to be going to launch this particular project. There were so many for the president to launch. I think that perception and even the public appreciating him as a good president is what made this economic growth to happen within that particular short duration of period. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Of course, we'll be coming back to you, Ray and David, but just allow me also to bring in my guest also just to say something as we continue having this conversation. I'm having a sit down this morning with John Murage. John was part of the Young Democrats movement way back when the Democratic Party was founded. And thank you so much once again for creating time for us this particular morning. Just as an opening remark from you, many would have wanted to know what was the vision of the young Kibaki during that time when he, founded this particular party.
Thank you very much for having me around. You see, when he was the Minister for Health up to 1991, and then he surprised each and every person when he just formed his own party without the intelligence getting to know, formed his party, Democratic Party, and we were somewhere seated. Okay, we had that knowledge that we were going to have a new party. And you see, we had that admiration for President Kibaki. Since the time we were young, and also in primary school, secondary school, and also at the university. So when he formed the Democratic Party, we joined hands with like-minded people and formed the Young Democrats movement. It was a wing of the party, Democratic Party. And our main objective was actually to support the party. It was a new party, open structures for the party, do plans for the party, do programs for the party, and at even some point, much later, we even started now funding the programs and projects of the party. So we were so excited being part of that team because President Kibaki was such an infectious person. Every time he talked, every time he gave a speech, you just felt like wanted to take notes. And so when we were members of the Democratic Party youth wing, we had a lot of structures. We had networks all over. We had networks in the coast. We had networks in Western. We had networks in Nyeri, Central Province, in all the provinces. And we picked the best brains. We picked like-minded people. And we were many. And you see, after the kind of pressure that we are going through, there was no employment. We had just come out of university, out of college. We were out there. We didn't have, like, my specialization is aerial survey and mapping. Mm-hmm. I'm trained as an aerial survey specialist, remote sensing and geospatial mapping. Mm-hmm. And you see, the fellas who were actually in that field were all whites. And even to go to a ministry and do your presentation, telling them that you can do flying, you can do a map using an aircraft, remote sensing, they could not even understand. So when the president came and we were there and we were developing papers, we were doing frameworks, writing this and that, it was so exciting and we moved very fast. After we formed out the Young Democrats, we now went back by around 1994. We had already matured enough. Mm-hmm. We had already acquired some offices. There was employment, and a majority of us had offices, and we were actually in business. What we decided is that as Young Democrats, we had this tendency of politicians always coming to give us handouts. Mm-hmm. And every time they came to the Democratic Party hall and they found us there, they would just tell us, can you just line up young Democrats so that we can bless you with 100? And we didn't like that. So what happened is
that's
that...
quite contrary with what
Yes.
we see today.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, let me just take you back a little bit. You were telling me that actually when the movement began, it was pro bono. Most of the things you did was voluntary, and sometimes you could go deep into your pocket to finance some of these activities that you're talking about.
Let me tell you,
what was your driving force?
You see, when you like somebody and their policies,
yeah,
you just feel like you want to continue doing that which he keeps on telling us. And he kept on telling us, look, you sacrificed for the country. Look at what you can do for the country, but not what the country can do for you. He kept on repeating it every other time that we met. And you see now, our pride was, we have already written papers, we have gone to sell the policies of the party in Mombasa, we financed our own trips, and then when we're coming back, we're coming up with papers, and then we are seeking appointments with the president. And when we go to his office at the Finance House, he'd be very excited. He would just come out, and you know, he's huge, and he looks at you and says, oh, Democrats, young professionals, what brings you here?
Yeah.
And then he would give us tea, and then you feel so relaxed. Then when you're explaining to him the things that you plan to do and what you have done already, he would be very, very, very excited. He was not petty at all. So when now we come out of his office, we go back again and then plan some other things, and when we come back to report, he would be very, 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 very friendly, and then he would actually constitute a team, help these young men to realize that which they have already developed. And that is how we managed now to form the professionals group. The professionals group, a majority of us were earning something close to 50,000 per month, but we managed to save up to close to 10,000 per month, so that we could assist the Democratic Party in its programs. And you see, we also managed to recruit business people from Nyamakema. They believed in him. In Gikomba, all over Juakali, they believed in him. And every time we went to Gikomba and you spoke in Kikuyu or in Kiswahili, they really loved. They just wanted to know, what is our president saying? What is the next program, so that we can fund?
All right.
So that is how we started.
I like how you're so nostalgic about these moments, and we're going to talk more about how this panned out over the years, and now even he began his initial journey to vie for presidency. What was the campaign season like for the young generation such as yourself back then? But just to take it back to matters economy on the other side of the studio, as I hand it over to Regina Manyara, just a question to David as you take it up, Ray. I mean, many have said that this was a season that also saw the expansion of financial services. Way back, many Kenyans were locked out of access to financial services, but this has grown over time, and nowadays more than close to 20 million Kenyans access such services through even their mobile phones. I mean, it's a revolution that began during Kibaki's time. I don't know what you think this revolution has done in terms of even changing the narrative when it comes to matters economy, David.
Well, of course, we have two ways that the government runs its economy. One is we call the fiscal policy. The other one is the monetary policy. The monetary policy primarily works through commercial banks, and that was a vehicle that was lacking before Kibaki came into power. So empowerment and having a structure of commercial banks has enhanced a lot the monetary policy framework. So of course it is good, and a lot of Kenyans have accessed the banking services, but we cannot say it has not also come without shocks, because initially rates and the way commercial banks operated was through market forces, demand and supply. Then of course the government came in with interest rate capping. So interference of the banking sector or the monetary policy to the banking system, of course, has come with all challenges, reinvention, technology, other underworld financial institutions that are not regulated, mobile banking that is not really regulated. All that has come with technology and change and government interference to the financial system. But 100%, it was the best system that the Kibaki regime came with, and The results are definitely positive because we can all access banks, we can all access our financial services, we can transact anytime, anywhere we want. And the government is the biggest spender. And all that money has to be channeled through commercial banks, and the vehicle are there. So it's a very positive mark, and we continue to enjoy it as a country. And remember, Kenya is a financial services hub for Africa. So basically, we've been able to get great milestone from that.
Indeed. You know, with the age of fintech, they are driven by M-Pesa. Now you can transact on that particular platform even while you're overseas. Those are some of the accolades that we look back and look at Kibaki's tenure with a lot of nostalgia. Now, I remember my grandmother telling me that they were not allowed actually to access the bank there. And now it just has reminded me that, you know, we're still trying to have MSMEs, products out there that are custom made for them, Kingo, so that we can jumpstart this economy, given that a majority of them are already in business. However, they're still seen as unbankable. Looking at the proposed finance bill of 2021-2022, what would you say were the highlights that would actually have these MSMEs, you know, taken care of in as far as access to credit is concerned, Kingo?
Oh, basically, what I saw from the finance budget was inclined towards a credit guarantee scheme, whereby when you borrow, of course, the commercial banks are told, now lend to these people. Of course, we are able to guarantee you, just in case the worst comes to us and they don't pay, then the credit guarantee scheme will service that. And when you look at even the way credit guarantee scheme is best to be funded, it's best to be funded by stakeholders and people. So papers will be released to the market and people will contribute to that particular credit guarantee scheme. Of course, it comes with a favorable interest from the liability side and the asset side when they lend to the public. So basically, that's ensuring that the banking system and SMEs process is anchored on the people. The people are able to run both sides of commercial lending. They're able to run the side of deposits to be given to the public through the credit guarantee scheme. Then the commercial bank get this money and give the people. So the government is trying to create a structure whereby banking does not need to be supported by the government. The people themselves, with structure, they're able to support the banking system and work on their own. The other aspect that I've not basically seen it in the budget, and relating to that and what Kibaki really adopted, was what we used to call them aggregators. And then for those who have done farming, for example, when you're doing business, there is a book we call delivery book. So what happens with a delivery book? If you are an MSME, for example, you are just doing farming on ground, then there is a company that exports farm products to any country in this world. So they give you directly from the exporter to the farmer called David, I have a delivery book on my own, on my name, on my farm number, as a local MSME in farming. So when I supply goods to this particular exporter, it is by guarantee I will be paid. So then I work with my delivery book and my statement from this exporting company to the commercial bank and tell them, I have supplied French beans worth 500,000 to this particular exporting company. This is their logo, this is their delivery book, this is the contract, this is the agreement. So give me a loan of 700,000. 200,000 I'll be guaranteed by my friend. 500,000 is a security from this particular exporter. Such structures ensure SMEs have the ability to borrow, and such borrowing is based on production processes. The government is not coming in, but the government has said, let us create aggregators. If you want to go and farm somewhere French beans, let the people in this particular area be enhanced, even through agricultural extension officers as MSMEs, to farm and get direct link from the exporting company. We reduce the broker in between. So that way means these people will be able to access credit by the virtue that they deal with the exporter. Those aggregators are the ones that will basically open that particular market. Because even when it comes to the credit guarantee scheme, of course there are other factors on the side of who is borrowing, the ability to pay. Because I will not give money as a commercial bank to someone who has no ability to pay or he has character issues, because even commercial banks look at all that.
There's been a proposal, let me just interject.
Yes.
There's been a proposal by CBK that, commercial banks actually adopt risk pricing when it comes to loans, so that, those who are more riskier pay more premiums, and those who are, ability to pay and willingness to pay can actually get low premiums. But we're still seeing a lag, or rather laxity, when it comes to commercial banks. Why do you think this is so?
I think what we need to understand is who is the riskier person here. Well, let us have the conversation of banking. The riskier person, I don't want to use this name, that is the most riskier person. And the presidency is interested in uplifting the lives and livelihood of that particular mtu wa bodaboda, tuseme. That is the person the presidency is interested in raising his or her livelihood. And this is the most riskier person. Then we are saying, let us free interest rate, or that we base risk on the customer. So if, for example, someone called David worked in the government and 100,000, then we have Mama Mboga, for example, a farmer in the village, just to use any other name, 100,000. So David, who works in a state agency, will get at 14%. This person who is doing farming will get at 20%. That is what exactly is this conversation.
So the riskier person actually is the person that government is really working at having, or rather empowering, so to speak, yes, from where you sit from an economics point of view. Then you're talking about the aspect of the aggregators that this aspect was not captured in the Finance Bill 2021-2022. But now, since these are the people that government is first of all targeting to empower and also include in the tax brackets to ease the burden from the formal employment. So where should government come in as far as there's been talk of government being the guarantor when it comes to this line of credit?
That's what I'm saying. We cannot open this interest. We need to be very keen. When you open this interest, we kill this person by default. He or she will never access credit. You go to a bank at 30%. What will you farm to give you a return of 40% that we pay that year and remain return? That one will not happen. What the government needs to see, how can we enhance the credit ability of this person as an individual without the credit guarantee scheme itself? So this is only possible by the model that were adopted by the Kibaki. And I've given you a scenario. There is a farmer here who does not have a delivery book from this particular company that is exporting hash potatoes. We got avocado. Hash avocado. Yes, sorry for that. So now, then we have this person has a delivery book, and he has already supplied avocados worth 200,000. He's still waiting to be paid in a month, so based on the contract. Then we have another farmer B that does not have a delivery book. He just also avocados, anawekanga tu kwa pickup zinakuja Nairobi zinatembea. When they both approached commercial banks, in the absence of credit guarantee scheme, this one who has a delivery book will be given money. Now then the bank will write to this particular exporting agency, kindly pass these payments through this account, because we have given money to this particular farmer to increase his output. You're getting it? So that concept itself has enabled this farmer to get more money at a lower interest rate compared to this one. This one will not be even, they not have that conversation. It's out of the door. So that is the scenario.
That's the scenario.
Because the credit guarantee scheme must also be exercised, will be operationalized when the lending framework is very solid and very sound. It will not guarantee anybody who just walks to the bank.
Aha. Yes. Now, I'd want to rope in Mr. Murage there. I can see you nodding to what he's saying in regard to, how the Kibaki regime actually handled matters of, trying to empower even the very lowest of people in as far as, the economic strata is concerned. Maybe you can shine some light into how it was, the banking era. My grandmother maintains that she would not have been allowed to access a bank, actually. She never had a bank account up until the recent years. Mr. Murage.
We had the post banker, and there was a booklet in which you filled if you wanted to get money from posta. We used to call it posta. And now, that time, the economy had shrunk so much so that even getting a bank account was almost impossible. getting a vehicle or owning a vehicle was almost impossible. When I bought my first car, which I bought in Holland, and I dropped by and I drove around in town, going up country, everybody knew that so-and-so had a vehicle, and it was a 305, 405, whatever it was. So in terms of what Kibaki did to get to the bottom of that pyramid, the Mwananchi, he loved the Mwananchi so much so, he revived the economy, agricultural sector, and every time he made his speeches, he dwelled on agriculture. This is an agricultural economy. It is based on agriculture. We have to develop our agriculture. And when he revived agriculture, he had already worked, just like David has just mentioned, on the banking sector. And there was a lot of money, because remember, the incomes derived from our taxes was at the level of about 180 billion per year. And when we got into power, it rose to about 800 billion. So you can imagine now that money being pumped now to the ministries. And then what he did was, all the parastatals were suffering. They were in shackles, they were in problems. What we did, because we were in that team, is that we picked the best brains, most experienced professionals, some from the World Bank, internationally, locally, and with a track record. We relied on NIS that time to pick on all those people. And then the people that associated with Kibaki were such characters that up to this day, you would admire them. A lot of them were so rich, they were wealthy, and they acquired the money, rightfully, the way you'd acquire your wealth, and they wanted to support this man. They believed in this man since 1960, 70s and all that. So when we now came to pick the characters who would actually manage our economy, the parastatals, the CEOs, the board of directors, I remember there were so many from the academia, there were so many now as professionals, engineers, economists. So it was so very easy now to revive the economy, to revive now the civil service. Then we initiated now the civil service reforms. And for sure, I went abroad some times back around that time, and they kept on telling us, you have one gentleman by the name Mwai Kibaki. Did you know that we relied on your master plans to do that which we wanted to do in our own country? And most of those master plans were actually developed at the Treasury here. We picked the best brains from the Treasury. And maybe what people do not know is that a lot of those master plans that you see, United Nations master plans, they were all developed at the Treasury, at the ministry here. That is why when you go now to South Africa, you go to Botswana, you go to Namibia, you go to Rwanda. I was there the other day. They were so excited because they are remodeling their economy in accordance with ours, and they have employed a lot of our experts. You go to Namibia, you'll find Otieno. You go to South Africa, you'll find Dr. Morage. You see, that is the kind of growth and the kind of expertise that has been nurtured in this country. So when you go out there, you'll find that a lot of our people respect this country as a country, and we are respected in such a manner that there was a time we went again to another session in South Africa, and each and every person wanted us to speak. They wanted a Kenyan, and I was there. I was actually giving a speech, and they all wanted to know, how have you managed the cooperative societies? That actually I think is the best in Africa. How have you managed infrastructure? How have you managed to be where you are in academia? How have you managed to be where you are in ICT? What have you done? It is because the people who are appointed to revitalize those parastatals, the civil service, were very, very credible people, very qualified. And that was the secret of President Kibaki. So a lot of our people who had actually contributed immensely during that time, and they were left out, they kept on complaining. And I remember going to State Lodge, and one of our friends complained bitterly that we contributed resources, we gave our vehicles, our monies, It's like even I lost my job because of you. And he was very mad with that. He was given a dressing down. He was told, those who have been appointed, they were just lucky. You'll be lucky another day. Just wait, right?
And
for your time.
Many have said he was not a man of freebies, you know, giving you something that you just putting it out there for you to get it easy. You had to earn his trust. You had to prove that you can.
Just because you shouted out there, or you threw stones, nothing. So then there was a lot of agitation for us now at the civil service to actually plaque some of those other people. You know, there were a lot of people redundant, doing nothing. And a team went to meet him, and they were very passionate. You see, now we have to go sack so-and-so. These other people, there are too many here, telecoms, railway. And he just looked at them and told them, look, they are all Kenyans. Right? Mm-hmm. They are all Kenyans. See, that the kind of person, you would not like to go back again, because the way he looks at you, with his eyes and turning them like this, and then the body language, we knew his body language. You just leave
and you didn't go further. I'm sure while he was doing all this, it didn't come easy. There must have been some very strong opposing voices and people from even within the system that might have wanted to, you know, pull down whatever good that he was trying to, you know, set up. I mean, how did he deal with the negativity within, you know, his circle?
You see, now when you're surrounded with very, very, very good people, people who are ready to sacrifice, you know, we could wake up at night, 3, somebody calls you and tells you, there's a problem at the ministry, there's a problem in Mombasa, there's this, that problem. You just find people running to go and support the government, to go and support him. And there was a lot of opposition. But what people did not know is that when he was getting into his presidency, there was a lot of goodwill. And a lot of people, even within the civil service, kept on bringing ideas, bringing papers, volumes, and also secrets. So if you tried to oppose that which he had passion for, you would see that there would be a lot of leakage. People telling you, so-and-so met at a certain place, and this is what we are saying. Then would actually address it and ensure that it doesn't continue. Again, he's not the kind of person who would go and shouting. So whenever we met, we made meetings, and we decided whatever we decided, you would never hear it here, out there. He had a very nice support system, which was actually entrenched in the civil service. It was in all the ministries, in the parastatals, in the private sector, and also internationally. People kept on telling us, can you just move on, just move on, ideas. And that's how he managed.
Okay, all right. So yeah. You had, body language could tell you
that you are not needed, or whatever it is that you are saying. We are not going to adhere to it. I think after the break, Mr. Murage, I would also want to hear when where were you and what was your reaction the day that the late President Mwai Kibaki resigned? Resigned. That is something that we had not experienced before. The late president also, Mwai Kibaki there, I mean, not Mwai Kibaki, but now Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi was very famous for, sacking his cabinet ministers at around lunch hour. And here we are, his VP that he demoted in 1988, now father, resigning. I'd want to know where you were and what you felt, what was going on. But for now, we take a quick breather. We'll be right back with more. Do keep it right here. Good morning. This is Good Morning Kenya on KBC Channel 1. We continue with our special coverage that began very early in the morning, Monday morning, where the body of the late President Mwai Kibaki there was taken to Parliament buildings for a 3-day, lying in state to allow Kenyans to pay their last respects, and tributes continue trickling in. This morning we're joined by 2 gentlemen. We have an economist in the house that is none other than CPA David Kingo of 14F Consulting, as well as John Murage, who is part of the professional team, Nyeri County, that was in charge of, bringing on youth on board during Kibaki's tenure. So I'm also joined by my colleague, Sefine Achieng. Yes, there she is. And we've said we're doing it it's not Wednesday, but it's Thursday, yes. But ladies are running the show this morning.
Thursday it is.
Yes.
Hashtag.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Now, before we took a short break, Mr. Murage was just telling us how the late president's gestures and, you know, body language was very clear for those who were around him to tell that either they had made an error in judgment and even speaking out their thoughts, or they were in good favor. Murage, now I'd want to know where you were on that day that Mwai Kibaki, the late Mwai Kibaki, in 1988 thereabout, you know, we had an issue, a fallout with the president. And in 1992, having been demoted from VP to a minister, late Mwai Kibaki did the unthinkable. He resigned from Daniel Moi's government. Where were you and what was going on?
It was around Christmas, yeah?
It was around Christmas, and we were in Buruburu,
yes.
And we had a party somewhere, and it was actually Christmas festivities, and people got so excited. We were in a club somewhere. We got so excited, you couldn't believe it. So after now the Christmas festivities, we actually joined others to go and look around, see what is happening, see where the party is, where the headquarters are, so that we could also be part of the Democratic Party. I was in Buruburu, and there was a lot of excitement in that club, because I remember up to this day, my companions, you know, the way they were excited. Everybody was so excited. And then it was also for the news anchor, I think at KTN.
Yes, Rose Lucalo.
She was actually picked. I think she was sacked or something. But the president actually wanted to know, why would you be sacked? Were you sacked because of me, for the announcement that you made? And actually he surprised Lucalo so much. And that was the kind of man we are talking about, wanting to know why you have been sacked. Were you sacked because of me? And it's like he was telling her, in my government, you'll have some place. So, and he comforted her. That is actually what happened in December. No one could believe, because those days we kept on talking, and when you talked, you looked around this other side.
There was a lot of mistrust, yeah?
Because there was a lot of mistrust.
The Mwakenya season.
Yes, it was very bad.
But I'm just curious, why would this news excite you and your colleagues?
You know, now here you're looking at a person who you've been following for many years. You've admired him. You know what he has. You know the kind of person that would make and change this country. And now he's in Kanu. We kept on saying, now why would President Kibaki still remain in Kanu while a majority of us are already in the opposition? Because we joined forward fast. We went forward fast. And even the first rally that we did in Kamukonji, I was also involved. And we were there, and we were beaten thoroughly. And now the president comes, resigns, and all of a sudden, comparing now those who were fighting that time, and the kind of Mayen, the demeanor, the kind of person that, you know, he came out as a person that we would love to see as our president. So we joined the bandwagon and joined him.
So there was that thirst for change. You're just waiting for that moment.
Yes.
All right. Reads back to you.
Now, I like that, you know, this news was exciting. But then after, you know, we also had the same kind of euphoria in 2002, but it was a little bit, there was a bit of worry. And I'd want to know also, Mr. Murage, where were you in 2002 when the news reached us that, you know, our presidential candidate, that is Mwai Kibaki, had been involved in a near-fatal accident?
I was actually there. I was in that trip. So I was about 3 vehicles behind him, his vehicle. And he had a Vogue that had been bought for him. Very nice Vogue, the old Vogue now, Range Rover. And what happened is that we'd done a lot of rallies that time. We were never used to actually following the politicians, whatever they went. No, we preferred actually working behind the scenes. But that day we actually followed him, and we were just behind, and it was a very bad accident. The vehicle just came flying from now the Machakos Junction, Mombasa Road, and there was a ditch somewhere, and it hit the ditch, and it was there. Very bad accident. So we helped, assisted in actually removing him and the other passengers in that vehicle. And it was not very nice because broken legs, hands, and all that. It was a very, very, very bad experience. So straight to Nairobi Hospital, and we were there up till, I think, 3 a.m.
Yeah. You know, this tragic accident came at a time. It was at the climax of the campaigns for the 2002 general elections.
Yes.
What conversations or what feelings were there at this particular time from close people such as yourself who were close to the candidate then, and also even among the political class, those who were working very closely with him? What is it that was going on?
It was a very low moment because everybody, when there's such an accident, you'll find rumors just spreading around that they've just organized an accident to kill our presidential candidate, and you can even see now the backlash. And everybody thought that somebody planned that accident. So, and you see now, knowing him, we didn't want to go that route, rumor mongering. So we kept on getting somebody to talk about the president. He's recuperating well. He's all right. He's fine. And it calmed the situation. That is how it was. And you see, we had about 70% or 60% of our Kenyans, of all Kenyans, following so closely what was happening to this presidential candidate. So it's like we didn't want that tension to go so high. So we tried as much as possible, the communication team, to calm the situation. And then we had that team now working around the clock to ensure that there was somebody, giving statements every other time. Yeah.
You've had the privilege of, having been with him from when he was young all the way to even when he retired, and even until the very latest during his life after retirement. We are addressing generations, and many may not know the Kibaki then and the Kibaki even after the accident. Maybe just to give us, what was there a difference? Did the accident change anything?
Yes. Why we admired him and adored him is because every time he picked wanted to give a speech, he did it so well. He had very good English, Queen's English, and he had a way with words. And when addressing and picking on issues, he could really, the issues could really come out. And every time he went to Parliament, and there was question time and there was debate, and he stood, he had actually commanded respect across the board. You would find members of Parliament just going silent so that he could just give him a chance. And the way he did it so well. He was so eloquent. I remember 1988, he had gone to Karodhi Primary School, and there was a rally. And that time, I think he was a minister I think he was a vice president. And they were fighting him. They wanted to demote him. So they had picked on some politicians to ensure that he is undermined in each and every step, wherever he went. And he was there. And he did a speech that was not received very well by the authorities. And then when they went to Parliament, and there was already a group that had already been set out there to question Kibaki on the floor of the House, to explain what is it that you did, what is it that you said, what you tried to tell our people in Karodhi borders on is incitement against our president, President Mwai. And I remember very well he stood up. Nation reported very well. He had such a magnetic brain that he repeated his speech verbatim, what he said. Then the nation brought out now the speech here plus what he said, and it was all verbatim.
It was all falling into place.
Yes. Remember, also 1974, there was also a report in the Times of the USA that Kibaki would be one of the best leaders who'd make an impact in the world. 1974 and then 1977. I see with this kind of profile, he had so many enemies even during Kenyatta's, President Kenyatta's time, Jomo Kenyatta's time, also Moi's time. They look around and saw a competitor. They were so jealous, and he knew that. So he was normally very cautious wherever he went. And even when he went for rallies and you sat down at Safari Park or wherever you went to take your refreshments, he would be very, very, very keen on who served him. Even a soda, he would pick on whoever is going to serve him. And he was keen on even the kind of food that was good to take. Because he had so many enemies, but he could not actually express that. That was the kind of person we are talking about.
All right. Wow, interesting. Mr. Muruga, now that you've told us all that, I'm picturing a person who was cautious about his surrounding, alive to the fact that not everybody was happy with his rising fame. And I'm also looking at a book that I've read, about Obama and what had been said before, and I'm seeing similarities with the late Mwai Kibaki. Just a quick question, and I think this is something that has not been discussed in the public forum. Did the team have a plan B in the event that Mwai Kibaki never made it through after that accident? Was there any plan for a plan B? Because we were at the height of campaigns. This was the flag bearer, this was the aspirant, everybody was behind him, but had he not made it, where would we be?
You see, what happened 2002, there was a team that was sent to go and talk out Honorable Raila Odinga. And they were sent twice, and they went. And when they came back, the president thought that he would actually deal with Raila Odinga alone. Because we were together in 1992, and then 1997. And here come NAK, National Alliance Party of Kenya, which we had actually designed and also helped to form. NAK involved SDP, Mamangilu, very formidable, Honorable Kijana Wamalo, and now the DP, Mwai Kibaki. Now we were looking out to Honorable Raila Odinga to come and join NAK so that we could just sail through. What happened was very interesting. When we seated, he came with a big team, big group, all defected from Kanu, and they kept on trooping. Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, Mudi Awori, Honorable Saitoti, Honorable Kamodo. They all came, and the group expanded to a level that now we had to rethink strategy and see how best to accommodate now this new team. That is now how they came up now with LDP, NAK. And then after the merger of NAK and LDP, then there was this NARC. Now, within that group now, you can see in the hierarchy, there was Honorable Raila Odinga, there was Honorable Wamalo. You see, it was a coalition. So if something happened to the president, then naturally it was going to be now Honorable Raila Odinga, by hindsight, right? But we had quite a battery of leaders and good leaders just waiting on the wings.
So what did this swearing in, this moment, 30th December 2002, mean for you, seeing Kibaki, winning this for a third time after having tried the first time in 1992, 1997? I mean, what did this mean? What does this moment mean for you?
2002?
Yes.
2002 was our best moment. For some of us who had worked so hard, you work and then you go back to your work. You work so hard, you contribute vehicles, you contribute your money, you contribute in the structuring, in preparing papers. Now, when we formed that government and when this other team came, we knew for sure we were going to get over 60%. It was so exciting. Remember, if you go to your clips, I brought some doves from Majengo, and I almost got later to bring them at the Jukoa. I had actually gone there because there was this peace, we wanted unity, and the president kept on saying, I will form a government of national unity. Even when we were in DP, he kept on saying he had his own 18-point plan. Much later in 1997, there was the 9-point plan. And every number 3 was always, I will form a government of national unity. It was a very good feeling, nostalgic, getting now to see the president being sworn in a wheelchair. It was a good feeling. Very good feeling.
All right.
Yes.
Just to throw it back to David also, you know, that moment when Kibaki took over power, there was that feeling of this is actually a new dawn for the country. Very high expectations that Kenyans had at that time, going by what, you know, they had promised, a new constitution, you know, free primary education, you know, a war against corruption, and of course, a lot that he promised to do even in terms of infrastructural development. If you look at how he led in the first term and in the second term, as we mourn him today, do you think that he lived up to those expectations that Kenyans had in 2002?
Basically what I would say, I'm trying to remember by the time the president was taking power in 2002 where I was. But basically what really...
where were you?
But basically, sorry, I think I'll answer that one a bit later. But basically what happens is that there was change, and there was what you call the other sim about change from a used traditional power to something new. And back that time, I think we were schooling then, everybody say that we need to be part and parcel of development. And even for those who were in high school, opportunities were there for people to join universities, colleges came, and so many opportunities. Everybody was being told, you can only limit yourself. But the opportunities for growth are there, and they've been created by the president. So what I will mention about that particular 2002 process is that it created a lot of expectation, a lot of hope, a lot of enthusiasm, even from the students that particular time, that there was hope, there was new structure, there will be opportunity. So it was a chance for us to realize we have a future, and there are all incentives for us to be the people that we wanted to become. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. Now, you know that you've said, we like that you've owned up and said that you were a student, you were not somewhere enjoying something, yeah, like Murage was in Buruburu, but very worried about people around, because those were the times that we're living. Today, we are looking back at the achievements that, you know, the late president brought forth, you know, away from matters of politics and also to socio-economics. And we find ourselves in, as far as the economy is concerned, at somewhat a catch-22 that we said, either we are doomed if we do, and we are doomed if we don't. What can we explicitly pick from Kibaki's model and apply it in this day and age to help us, at least, if not leapfrog post-COVID, as we're talking about recovery and such, at least we maintain some semblance of growth, because our debt is something that is already pulling us down.
What I mentioned is that I think the model is there. The model is more or less the same, so the framework is still there. I think we say that, for example, ministers should be called technocrats. But I can only mention about those who actualize the model. When you look at Kibaki's system, there were statesmen and stateswomen. These are the people who held at the helm of the ministries, for example. Then we had technocrats, I think, from the permanent secretary downwards. So the statesmen were able to run the government very effectively and ensure they have national interest at their heart. The technocrat will come with a lot of experience that is vigorous, that is aggressive, that is put this one here tomorrow move this one. But the statesmen would balance all that particular system and ensure things are happening seamlessly. So the people who run the program is what we need to look at. Vision 2030 is there before, will be there after, and it will be there after this particular regime, even the coming one. So the model is there. What we need to look at is who runs this model. Apart from the presidency, who else is running this particular model? The issue of statesmen should be brought back. People who have interest for this country. Yes.
Statesmen should be brought back and technocrats to handle actually the heavy lifting. They should do the heavy lifting because they have the experience and the academic background. Mr. Murage, I liked what you talked about when it came to the people that the late President Mwai Kibaki picked to be cabinet ministers as well as his round table, so to speak. That you also involved the NIS. Maybe is this a model that we can borrow in picking the people who have the passion to take this country where it should? Because there's been a question on the integrity issue every time that we go to the polls, and one way or another it is watered down by politics, tribalism and such. Is this a way that is something we can borrow to have these people now as we're going to the elections come August 9th?
Just that is the model we should follow. Look, when you pick professionals and they're out there as technocrats, then you pick on patriots. We know them. You also know them. Everybody knows the kind of people that we have with NIS, and also with the help now of professionals surrounding you. It will be very, very, very easy to run a government and also revitalize the economy. If you surround yourself with people of questionable character, which we didn't do at all, then you're doomed to fail. And that is the model we should really copy. We have a very robust NIS, NSIS, very robust. There are reports every day of individuals, people who have been out there, they are known, what they do, where they go, what they have done. Every day, records are kept. So getting such people would be very, 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 very key. And even when we are doing our appointments, we should pick our political appointments to positions like maybe deputy assistant minister, something like that. Ministers, you mix them with professionals. But as much as possible, let us get professionals to be the technocrats that will support the government, that will drive the policies of government. That way, we shall succeed. This is something we need to copy and run away with it, because it worked. And it has worked.
It's good that you're saying that, because there's been a lot of talk about what draws the line between politics and, serving as a technocrat. You see the current arrangement where we have cabinet secretaries not being part and parcel of the politics of the day. But at some point, you sort of see a situation where the very same cabinet secretaries are involved in the politics of the day. They speak out on the campaign trail. And there's been a lot of critique about where this country is going with that kind of a, situation. I mean, what would you say about how do we address this particular matter going forward?
We need to have a hybrid where you have now the politicians, but you pick on the best because they are known. Whether there is political balancing, because also political balancing is also very key in this country, because this country is so tribalized. The politics is so tribalized. And it was very difficult also for us, and also even for the current administration, to balance, because you'll find that the person who the Mwananchi love and admire is so tainted, but you have no other way than just to bring him on board. We should just come out and say, man, we have this and that is happening. There is no way we are going to include all these people because this is your file. We need to change our laws. We need to strengthen Chapter 6 of the Constitution, such that if you have been involved in corruption, you have been involved in some other ways that that are untoward, you should not be appointed to that very high office, and that should be done. The Constitution as it is right now, you heard the other day IBC telling us that the DPP saying to all and sundry that is not going to touch any file right now, the corruption cases that are within the judiciary for the time being, until such a time that we are through with the elections. That is to say that his hands are tied. We need to relook at that Chapter 6 of the Constitution so that we pick just the best. And you see, Kibaki did it. And when he did it, a lot of us felt very bad because we were not picked. They were not picked. But he picked the best that time. People we not even know, but their track records spoke for themselves. And he picked, and he did it. So we need that kind of policy to be engraved in our constitution, and also to get to our people and tell them there is no way a corrupt person, somebody has bribed his way into parliament, will continue, will stop doing that which he has been doing. He will continue tampering with the CDF money. He will ensure wherever he goes, if he's a minister, he'll ensure that all tenders are actually awarded to his cronies. That trait, we have to delink these people from the mainstream governance systems. Yes.
All right, just the same question I'd like to throw to David. I don't know how he feels Kibaki handled this, balancing the technocracy and the politics of the day. I mean, how do you rate him, and did he work for him?
In a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of balancing both the technocrats and the politicians, I'll give him a 7. Because what basically happened, and what I saw, is that the politicians who were in administrative offices, for example, these were senior politicians, not starters, and people who could have exited politics and still remains financially stable, socially stable, morally stable as people. So basically, when you look at that particular class of politicians holding public offices at the top, then basically you expect performance. And I literally give examples. There was a minister, this was Michuki, right? Then there was the other gentleman, I don't remember, who was in defense at some point, Jenga Karume. Look at those people. They are at age in terms of politics, in terms of life. What they want for this country is greatness and economic development. And they would give the best advice to technocrats that are working under them, and they will give them space to work and achieve the vision that Kibaki wanted to achieve. So basically in that particular mix, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Yes.
Well, 7 out of 10, that is not such a bad grade. And now talking about, balancing, technocrats vis-a-vis politics, awarding politicians or rather awarding loyalty. Murage will chip in on that, on the issue, because we had seen this already happening. We're already seeing political formations here and there, with people aligning themselves with their loyalists, and sometimes in some quarters, as politicians, as critics have come out to say that these people are still missing out on the integrity question, as well as what are they bringing to the table in terms of development. But before we get to talk to matters politics, before we wind out on matters finances, King O, there's been talk about that where we are and how Kibaki dealt with the issue of graft. Yes, and where we know now graft is what is holding back us back as Kenyans when it comes to matters of development. I had a very clear statement from someone, and I'd want to repeat it here on national television, that the way things are, we might as well start budgeting for corruption. The way we do a budget and balancing of a balance sheet, we have a 13% on miscellaneous. Now we need to include graft because we've not handled it adequately. King O, what is your take in that regard?
Regarding corruption, I think when Kibaki came into power, the constitution, of course, was not there, and there were no policies, laws to talk about corruption. But the economic recovery strategy of wealth creation and employment had a statement about corruption. I think they came up with the anti-corruption. It used to have another name back then. So the ERC paper had to create the corruption office. It was supposed to create a police corruption unit that was supposed to deal with people who are involved in corruption. It was also supposed to ensure that people who have cases in graft, they are taken to court. So those are the initiatives that Kibaki came into power and initiated. Then immediately after the 2010 constitution, of course now there were government agencies like the EACC that came up, DPP was there, they were empowered, judiciary was empowered, so the structures were put in place to fight corruption. And then we would not see the hand of even the president in fighting corruption. He ensured the structures were working, then they would fight corruption. So as a lesson today and after is that we need to empower our national entities and institutions to ensure they're able to fight corruption by themselves. That way we are able to cap corruptions, because we've seen a lot of corruption coming in, and as you mentioned that we might be start to budget for corruption. And then of course the budget has appropriations for, they will not say, from the planning and from the economic point of view and from the financial expert point of view, there'll be appropriations for misuse of funds, because and then but directly it will not be misuse of funds, because for example if the government has have planned and funded a project for example construction of road, then this road is supposed to take 120 days, then all of a sudden you have El Nino, the culverts that we had put have been washed away. Then we move to the contingency fund. How many had we put, how much had we put aside as contingency fund to take care of that? So we don't want to assume that that particular contingency funds in the budget is supposed to be misused. But basically let us have very strong structures. Let us empower our corruption fighting entities as a country, so that they be able to fight corruption with or without any president that has goodwill to fight corruption. Yes.
Well, I hope I never live to see the day where we start budgeting for corruption, because, you know, this is a political season and we've had a lot of promises on the campaign trail that we are going to eradicate corruption. And always my question is, why is it in the present continuous? Why doesn't it happen in this day and time? On that note, we take a quick breather. We'll be right back.
This is the coziest bed I've ever slept in. You feel good, but I don't like it.
Why would Gordon still keep this picture here? What reason could he have to keep it? You took away my dad's company, took away my mom's house and everything we owned. So don't pretend that you care.
Mr. Huang, you go in and rest. I'll wipe it clean for you.
You were one of my clients. How could I let you wash my car for me?
Accept that deaf kid as my own brother. You simply cannot keep him here and treat him as if he were your son.
I absolutely forbid you from referring to him like that. Don't get so worked up.
Get my son as well as my silence, and I make a profit from both.
For the sake of the whole family, you have to be mentally healthy and in control of your faculties. What happened yesterday cannot be repeated.
I can help you to get that kid out of the house. Then you can demand a whole lot more money, promising to return him.
They've stolen my money! All my money! All my money!
If it isn't ready by the time Adrian gets here, you'll be in real trouble with me.
Una nini?
Shida ya pesa.
Kama hii ndio nafikiri itakuwa sababu ya mimi kumsamehe Badi. Well, thinking wrong. Mumeo unamfahamu, alipi deni.
Usimwambie kwamba nimelipa hilo deni. Na wala usimwambie chochote kunihusu. Mbona usimwambie mume wako? Si ndio mwenzako wa ndoa ama? Interview ilikuwa ya kulewa ama mlipewa pombe kama kazi?
Is she sick? Hey, I asked you a question. Are you pregnant?
What?
Not in the house.
Kukadili fulani hapa mbaya. Kataivana. Wazi arifu.
Kathy's back. She's in Kenya as we speak.
Wewe inaonekana unamjua mwanamke sana
Moto. Huyu mwanamke ni moto wa kuotea mbali.
I asked you how much money you wanted so you can stay away from my daughter.
Kwa serious?
What plan do you have for your life?
Mwache saja amue.
Believe it or not, this one here is Stephanie's boyfriend.
What?
By the way, naitwa Jonte.
All right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Today we continue with the coverage of the final send-off of the country's third president, Emilio Stanley Mwai Kibaki. Tomorrow there's going to be a state funeral, and of course this is coming ahead of the interment on Saturday at his Othaya home in Nyeri County. In studio this morning, we have just been having a conversation around who this man Kibaki was and some of the things that he achieved in his time, even before he became the head of state, and during the time that he served the country as the president for 2 terms, beginning 2002 all the way to 2013. We have been having, this conversation with 2 guests this morning: CPA David Kingo, a financial expert, and of course John Murage, who was part of, a team that brought young people on board during the time that former President Mwai Kibaki founded the Democratic Party. He was part of the Young Democrats movement. And of course, we have just been talking about both his political side and his economic side. And that is what we want to continue doing with my colleague in studio, Regina Manyara. It's a Ladies' Thursday, not Throwback Thursday today. All right, so I just want us to continue, Ray, and I'll throw this question to, David. Just looking at the legacy of the late President Mwai Kibaki, part of it is decorated by what he did when it comes to, in developing infrastructure in the country. And if you look at his contribution in the transport system, David, what are some of the things that stand out for you? Things that you look at today and you see Kibaki written all over them?
What I would mention first is that, and I still refer this back to the structure that he wanted in place. I think one of the first projects that was in the economic recovery strategy was to build a dual carriage from Mombasa to Malaba. I remember we used to have a lot of traffic jam along Mombasa Road. It was a small road that the trucks and the buses would really create a jam of traffic that was so much. So Kibaki opened that particular structure. The other issue was about the Thika superhighway. I'm sure we used to see these roads in movies, and we've never seen how Thika Road would be that big. Because traditionally, when you tell someone Thika Road was a single lane, I mean the other side going to and the other side. So people would never imagine that that road was such more land. All these cars used to be that particular road. So opening the road and creating a superhighway was also an incentive and to open up the mind that Kenya can have superhighways, can have good road networks, and can create business. I am certain sure, even when I look at the infrastructure, the businesses around the Thika highway, my senior Karanja, I'm sure, will tell you, they were not there. So, and they came up with, the new roads came up with very new business. Real estate companies grew along that particular highway. Even also when you look at the economic recovery strategy, the bypass that you see around were in that particular document. The southern bypass, the eastern bypass, the northern bypass, all these blueprints were developed in 2003. So all these processes really opened the economy a lot in terms of infrastructure. Also in the local areas, tarmac roads used to be tarmac, but 70% is pothole. The tarmac only covers 30%, so you imagine such a road. Then there was national repair of these roads. When you also look at the infrastructure, he developed institutions. For national highways, he said, let us have, he called it Kenya National Highways Authority to deal with the highways. He's trying to break this whole thing of infrastructure into manageable levels and entities. He came up with Urban Roads Authority to deal with feeder roads along the urban centers. That is infrastructure. He again created Rural Roads Authority. So they're able to take care of rural roads. So all these structures were meant to address one thing, infrastructure. So we can see the efficiency that this president left in terms of infrastructure. Even as well, just to add, when you have a tarmac road, you have a power line by the side. So he said, even in the power line, let us have rural electrification authority. Right? Let us have Kentraco. Let us have Kenya Pipeline Company. So let us have Steel Kengen. All these were institutions that were being set to create a good framework for the government to execute its objectives on infrastructure. So that is my view regarding infrastructure by the president.
Now, can I just to jump in, Safin, there, we had Mr. Murage tell us that over the years he has represented the country in different various platforms, and the question, or rather the conversations around is that, you know, we are modeling our economy on your blueprint. From where we sit and where we find ourselves looking at, you know, our socio-economic path as well as where we find ourselves in terms of economy, what is holding us back, Murage, from attaining what which other countries, South Africa as you've mentioned, Rwanda there, are modeling with our framework? What is holding us back from achieving the blueprint, you know, framework that we already has laid ground for our, you know, economic growth, so to speak?
I think we're still within the 2030 vision that was envisaged. It is still alive, and like Kibaki, he never wanted to compare Kenya with any other country. And I will also not do that. What I've seen is that after the president started the fight against corruption, he kept on telling us corruption fights back. And we saw it. After the Ringera Judicial Commission, there were some changes at the judiciary. They fought back. There were cartels, and those cartels were so entrenched, they were all over. So he changed tact, and what happened is that we started now the process of digitalization, where you would actually get your title. No title. Right now we are doing the titles. The titles are being done now. Right now they're being digitalized so that you acquire your title digitally. You apply even for searches, you do digitally. But before he come now to titles, he started now with the logbooks, right? Then the IDs, the birth certificates. He told us, look, if we computerize now our systems, we shall have to deal with hackers only, but those lines and the queues you find at KRA for people lining up to get their driving licenses will be no more. We used to queue there, and we had individuals, agents, who also used to be stationed out there, and they will you bribe them, 2,000, 3,000, you get your systems, you know, you get your cards renewed. What has happened is that now with the Huduma centers that was started that time, you just need to get into a Huduma center, you apply for your document and you get it. That we're cutting a lot of brokers, a lot of agents who used to actually disseminate and also practice corruption in a very, very, very big way. Now, at the titles at Survey of Kenya today, and also at the Ministry of Lands, you'll find there's also digitalization, where documents are being digitalized in such a manner that there is a geospatial infrastructure system that will be created that is linked to all the ministries, so that there is no duplication. Right? That way you cut corruption by almost 70%. Now the corruption that we are talking about right now is about tenders. Now the cartels have moved into the tender system, the tenderpreneurs and all that, and they are selling, you know, tenders to you. They will discuss with their officials inside there, and they'll sell the tenders to you at a fee. That is now where we need to take action. But in terms of achieving the 2030 goals, is that we are on track. The kind of massive infrastructure that we have seen, because what the current administration has done is that the foundation that was set by the President Kibaki, they have done it so well that today the massive infrastructural impact right now, maybe it will be felt after 20, 30 years, but we are on the right track. You can't now compare our country with our neighbors right now. But what we need to do right now, we have a lot of seats, political seats. You have governor, you have deputy governor, you have deputy days, you have speaker, you have everybody, and they're all tuning money, right? You know, now we have devolved now corruption into the counties. And you'll find now the governor, some governors will ensure that they employ their cronies and they award contracts to their cronies so that he may get into his second term without a problem, right? With CDF, they're also doing the same. You enlist your suppliers and contractors, you award them those contracts so that they give you kickbacks. So we need to work on corruption right now. But the vision is okay. I don't see a big problem. We should continue with a computerization system so that we are in a position to talk of actually attaining the Vision 2030 that time. And what happened, and people do not, maybe a lot of our people do not know, is that Kenya is so advanced in terms of ICT. We have 3 fiber optics lines today. Think one from India, another one from the Red Sea, another one from the Americas. 3. And now with the master plan that has been set today by the current administration, is like there will be cyber cafes at the village level. You see, you'll find a lot of our young people today, the ones that we used to mentor that time, and I'll mention some of them because we had a system of mentoring the youths and we wanted to bring them into government. We also wanted to expose them, and we even invited and sponsored several of them into those parliamentary seats and all that. What is happening right now, you'll find a 24-year-old college student, just left college, driving a Vitz, something that us people we could not do. Simply because they are just going to the cyber, they do their trading, they do their transactions, they make their money, and they are driving today. You could count individuals who owned vehicles in our time, right? But these days you find our young people have Vitz, they have Vogues, they have everything. Although they are prioritizing first to buy vehicles without having to buy to buy a house, but we are doing well.
But you have to give it to them.
Yes.
It's increasingly becoming a necessity.
It is.
You know,
it is.
I mean,
It is.
Maybe back in the day it wasn't as something that you're required to have, but it's becoming a necessity.
I agree.
I like the way Safin is using. You need to, give it to them. We are in this together. Safin. We are the youth that
I'm actually part of now.
The digital team.
Now talking about the digital team, Kingo, I saw you nodding when Mr. Murage was talking about, how things have changed in as far as, what we prioritize and how the economy is at that allows the younger generation to actually move up with speed, so to speak. However, the older generation still thinks that Generation Z and X, our priorities are topsy-turvy. No, we will not talk about the priorities because their priorities were that then, but now we have other priorities. Let's talk about how it has been an enabling environment, especially borrowing with the foundation that was set in from 2002 to 2003 to where we are at. I think off the cuff we were speaking about what's up. It's because of Kibaki. Tell us about that.
Basically, trying to say that we don't want to assume that before Kibaki, technology was not that advanced. People could communicate there were other means to communicate that were not WhatsApp, but there were those means, but they were not in this country. So today, everybody has, for example, let us demystify what is economic development. So today, you would find you've WhatsApp group for villagers, and in this village group, people can speak English. People have gone to those primary and secondary school that were set by the Kibaki government. That one tells you the impact of Kibaki in terms of education and technology, because every primary school was given a secondary school, I guess. So the transition in terms of education, it is duplicated, and we can see it even on our own phones, that as a village we can communicate and execute something without meeting on WhatsApp. That one tells you the level of education that is in our own villages. I think the only challenge is to exploit this particular education level into an economic benefit. How can we make sure that all these people that have gone to these particular schools, they can be able to have a sustainable lifestyle? That's the only challenge that is there. So through that technology, we are here as professionals. The other thing that we can give as a signal of Kibaki is because by that time, when you clear high school, for example, you're supposed to say 2 years before you go to a university. Then public universities, I guess, they used to be 7, right? So now there are many, and you don't need to wait for 2 years. Kibaki came in and said, immediately after university, after high school, you proceed to university. So the president saved us 2 years in our employment. And Kibaki saved that 24 pay slips that could have gone
I didn't even see that coming, by the way.
That is the impact
That's a nice way of putting it.
24 payslips that would have slipped away.
I mean, look at that.
That's the impact of a good presidency. And a loan of 24 months can buy you a piece of land.
Hallelujah.
And that piece of land you can invest at a business and give a living to your family. That is what the impact of that move by the president. So the other aspect that we saw is that the number of courses that were even at university level, we used to have the joint admission board. I think the courses were very few. But when Kibaki came in, I think different schools were introduced. School of Law, I think, was existing, engineering. So there was School of Economics, School of Business, School of Humanities, Social Sciences. So many courses were introduced, geospatial engineering, all that brought professionals into the market and who brought opportunities to this particular country. Because this one also translates in terms of how many people are being paid internationally, as in receiving income internationally. What derails economy and what we're trying to see even currently is because it is us who are paying as a country. We want to import things, we are paying loans, we are paying money outside there. So how many people now on the other side are receiving money in terms of dollars from other countries? All these professionals started institutions and entities and corporates that they earn money out of transactions abroad, and that one still stabilizes our forex. So those initiatives that were set by Kibaki, they have a great impact even to the individual. So you can imagine, since this system of 2 years, immediately after high school you join a college or university, how many 24 payslips have been created to date when you multiply? So you can literally tell the impact.
That is debatable, though. That depends on whether you get the job immediately
or not,
after you graduate or not.
You talk about an aggregate.
But something else we need also to talk about is how Kibaki achieved so much, yet he left the scene with so little in his name. I mean, he's one person who, apart from the 40th anniversary coin, there's nothing much that you could say has been named after Kibaki, as street buildings, you know, like we are used to seeing. I mean, what does this say about the man that he was and about his character?
You see, I don't even believe that it was his idea to get the 40 shillings or the 40 shillings coin. He never liked to be praised by anybody. He never, even if it was in a party or in a rally, he wouldn't like praises. Never. He just liked, he actually advised people to be who they are. Leave me alone. Just do what brought you here. Those other things about getting Kibaki superhighway, like the Thika superhighway, getting Uhuru highway now to Kibaki, there's hospitals and all that. He never wanted that. Because he believed in actually having to work, service, deliver it to the people, then leave an impact. Just that. Those other things, no. No, not at all.
Leadership is not about being out there, you know.
Being praised and having names under your, you know, never. He never liked that at all. Never.
All right. Ray, there's something also that maybe, you know, we can, you know, look at that many have talked about. You know, there's much that he achieved during his time, but it also came with an increased government expenditure that many have poked holes into. I mean, are these concerns justified? Maybe you're more conversant with numbers here.
Well, in the report that I read from one of, you know, the consulting firms, and this is PKF here, they said that the reason why there was increased expenditure from government was because, first of all, he had made promises during his campaign trail, one of them being the free primary education, which actually saw come into effect almost immediately he took up office. That required money. Then also there was a talk on focus on health as well as matters of infrastructure. David Kingo will step in because he told me that his model around matters of economy was demand driven, and this is what Kenyans sought. Then also during his own tenure, there was the new constitution came into effect. But before then, he also introduced CDF that also paved way of how we ran things within the devolved system. So there was a lot that government needed to do, first of all, to support transition, as well as also ensure that he lived to the expectations of Kenyans in regard to the promises that he had made while at the campaign trail. But to further enlighten us, why do you think there was a lot of increased government expenditure during at least the first term of Kibaki's tenure? Kingo?
I think basically what happens because the previous regime, there was little of infrastructural development or little of fiscal policy. So when Kibaki came in, of course, there was need to have a lot of expenditure that to shape our fiscal framework. And just as you mentioned, I can just even give an example regarding education, because when you say free primary education, then of course you mean the percentage of people transiting from, or pupils transiting from primary to secondary will increase. Then let's see the number of high schools that were there. As a district, or rather a sub-county, will have around 2 or 3 secondary schools. And remember, now we've free primary education. All that necessitated for a lot of infrastructure in terms of secondary schools to absorb these particular pupils who are coming from primary school. So that one necessitated a lot of expenditure. And then I just say to mention what I see Kibaki did. They came with centers of excellence per district to see big school in a sub-county, how much they could absorb. And that one did not really absorb because the transition was so high. Then now they brought on board the CDF and they gave it a mandate. One of the mandate was education. So every primary school to have a neighboring secondary school, so we can imagine the cost that was there. So because the history was not good in terms of physical infrastructure, then the expenditure, of course, would be borne by Kibaki. That's why we get that particular increase. Yes.
Now, just as we wind up on matters of economy, there's also reports that indicates that, Kibaki did not just work in isolation. He had a team of technocrats, and one of them was the then Finance Minister David Miraria, who worked together to actually revive the economy to a point that now banks were relegated to hawking, there's that term, to hawking loans from kiosks on the streets. Why? Because now he opted, now you know what, I'm no longer going to do business with you, as you said, short term, to revive the economy and create businesses that these commercial banks that had come up during his tenure could actually loan to. But now he pulled back, forcing banks now to go to the private sector and loan to the private sector. And this actually spurred the economic growth to around 8.4% by in 2010. Now, tomorrow we expect a state funeral service, that is, everything is systems go. This is according to the Cabinet Secretary Interior, CS Fred Matiang'i there. Everything is ready and set for that. Let me take you down memory lane before I hand it over to my colleague Safina Cheng. Is that we have had a series of state funerals in the country. The first being with the first founding father, and that is Jomo Kenyatta there, who died in office, and in August 1978, 31st August 1978, there, after his body laid in state for a national mourning period of up to 30 days, was buried in a marble mausoleum in Parliament. If you drive through Parliament, you will see that particular mausoleum. And what was different with the first founding father is that, for the funeral in itself, his body, rather his casket was wheeled from State House through the streets of Nairobi to the mausoleum by the same gun carriage that was used during the 1965 funeral of Sir Winston Churchill of Britain's World War II Prime Minister. That's just an interesting fact. But over the years, we've had state burials of other eminent persons in the country, including Kenya's 8th Vice President, and this is the brother to Eugene Wamalwa there, that is Kijana Wamalwa, which took place on September 6, 2003. And in as much as the state wanted to bury Wamalwa at Uhuru Gardens then, or Uhuru Corner, his culture and tradition, would not allow, and thus he was buried at his Milimani home in Kitale, with elaborate rites as such. We also had Wangari activist laureate there Wangari Maathai of the Greenbelt movement, who also was accorded a similar funeral service. And he was later cremated according to his will, and this that took place on October 7th, 2011. And just earlier on in 2020, we also had a state funeral service for the late President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi in February 2020. So tomorrow we're going to be having a state funeral service for the late President Mwai Kibaki that is going to be taking place at the Nyayo Stadium. And also some facts. Remember, this is going to be heads of states that die in office are also entitled to a military burial, as well as those who served previously. Now, however, and this is a fact that may not be in the public domain, is if those these particular military honors are not offered to persons who commit suicide. Yes. So, because it is against the laws of Kenya, and also taking one's life is considered taboo. So tomorrow we expect to be treated to a state funeral there in accordance to, military honors, where we're going to be having firing of weapons in other reverence traditions according to the honor of the deceased. We're expecting a 19-gun salute for the late President Mwai Kibaki. KBC Channel 1 is going to be televising this particular funeral service from its inception to the tail end. And remember, we're also going to be live from Othaya, where the late Mwai Kibaki is going to be interred. Now let's take a look at the life and times of the late Mwai Kibaki. I'm Regina Manyara. I wish you a pleasant viewing ahead. We have been having a conversation with CPA David Kingo of 14F Consulting as well. Yes, there he is. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Sefin?
All right, thank you so much. Also, on this other side, we are signing out. I've been having a conversation with John Murage. John Murage was very instrumental in bringing young people on board under the Young Democrats movement, and he has highlighted quite a lot of things concerning their working relationship with the country's third, president. Thank you so much, John, for creating time for us.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we want to leave you with something that we compiled concerning the legacy of the late Mwai Kibaki. As we conclude this, thank you so much for creating time for us. But remember, this continues. Keep it KBC Channel 1. On the other side, we will continue to just look at the life and times of the late Mwai Kibaki. But from me, Safin Acheng Oma, it's been such a pleasure doing this for you. Have a good
Mwai Kibaki na hapa kwamba
born Emilius Stanley Mwai Kibaki on 15th of November 1931 in Gatuyaine village, Othaya, in present-day Nyeri County, Kibaki worked as a lecturer at Makerere University in Uganda.
Kibaki useme na wananchi wa Kirinyaga.
Kibaki returned to Kenya to become KANU's executive officer and helped draft Kenya's independence constitution. In 1962, Kibaki was elected the Member of Parliament for Donholm constituency, present-day Makadara. Subsequently, he was appointed Assistant Minister for Finance and Chairman of Economic Planning Commission in 1963. He played a key role in drafting the famous 1965 sessional paper number 10 on African socialism and its application to planning in Kenya. He would be promoted to become Minister for Commerce and Industry in 1966 and later Minister for Finance and Economic Planning in 1969 after he was re-elected to Parliament to represent Donholm constituency.
Have to divert a very significant proportion of our resources towards expenditures for defense. And thus this means that we will not be spending as much as we would like to do on other.
Following what is said to be pressure from his closest rival in the 1969 elections, Jael Mbogo, Kibaki moved his political base from Nairobi to Othaya in 1974. He attributed this to what he termed as calls from the people of Othaya. He was elected Othaya MP in 1974, getting re-elected to Parliament in 1979, 1983, 1988, 1992, 1997, 2002 and 2007. When Daniel Arap Moi succeeded Jomo Kenyatta as the country's president in 1978, Kibaki was named Kenya's vice president, but retained his position as finance minister. He was moved to the Ministry of Home Affairs in 1982. A fallout with President Moi in March 1988 saw Kibaki demoted from the vice presidency and moved to the Ministry of Health. Despite the fallout with Moi, Kibaki would remain loyal to the president and the ruling party KANU. Hence, it came as a surprise for many when he resigned from government in December 1991, days after the repeal of Section 2A of the Constitution, which restored multipartyism in Kenya. His resignation would then see him form the Democratic Party, DP, which he used to vie for presidency in 1992 against Moi, Kenneth Matiba and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Kibaki came in third. He ran for presidency again in 1997, this time round finishing second behind Moi and becoming the leader of the official opposition in 1998. Mwai Kibaki would give the presidency another shot in 2002, this time round being boosted by a host of other opposition parties under the National Alliance Rainbow Coalition. And truth to the saying, that time is a charm. On the 27th of December 2002, Kibaki and NARC registered victory over KANU with 62% of the votes compared to his competitor Uhuru Kenyatta's 31%. The win brought to an end KANU's 4 decades rule since independence. Kibaki got re-elected in 2007 for his second and final term as President of the Republic of Kenya.
He was born on 15th November 1931 in Dhunguri village, Othaya division in the then Nyeri district of Central Province, now Nyeri County. His parents, Kibaki Gavanji and Teresia Wanjiku, were peasant farmers. Even though he was baptized as Emilio Stanley by Italian missionaries in his youth, he has always been known as Mwai Kibaki. He began his academic journey at Gatuyaini School, which he attended for the first 2 years, completing what was then called Sub A and Sub B, equivalent of Grade 1 and Grade 2. He would later join Karima Mission School for the 3 more classes of primary, and between 1944 and 1946, he proceeded to Madari School, now Nyeri High School, for Standard 4 to 6. Aside from his academic prowess, he acquired skills in carpentry, masonry, and agriculture. He joined Mangu High School in 1947 and passed his O-level examination with a maximum of 6 points in 1950. In his final year in Mangu, Kibaki considered becoming a soldier, perhaps inspired by the veterans of the First and Second World Wars in his native village. He, however, opted to shelve his ambition and instead joined Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda, to study economics, history, and political science. His academic brilliance saw him graduate best in his class in 1955 with a first-class honors degree in economics. After his graduation, he took up an appointment as Assistant Sales Manager, Shell Company of East Africa, Uganda Division. It was while working there that he earned a scholarship to pursue a postgraduate studies in any British university. He joined the prestigious London School of Economics for a BSc in Public Finance, graduating with a distinction. In 1958, he went back to Makerere University, this time as an assistant lecturer, and taught in the economics department. In early 1960, Kibaki left academia for active politics by giving up his job at Makerere and returning to Kenya to begin his journey into politics as the executive officer of Kenya African National Union Party. In 1961, Kibaki married Lucy Muthoni, a daughter of a church minister who was then a secondary school head teacher. The couple was blessed with 4 children: Judy Wanjiku, Jimmy Kibaki, David Kagai, and Tony Githinji. Lucy, however, died on 26th of April 2016 at 80 years at Buma Cromwell Hospital in London after a brief hospitalization at the Nairobi Hospital for chest pains. He was a committed member of the Roman Catholic Church and attended mostly Sunday afternoon services at the Consolata Shrines Catholic Church in Nairobi. He enjoyed playing golf and was a member of the Muthaiga Golf Club.
Mimi Mwai Kibaki naapa kwamba
On 30th December 2002, Mwai Kibaki took the oath of office as Kenya's third president on a wheelchair in front of hundreds of thousands of Kenyans at Uhuru Park in Nairobi. With his right leg in a cast after a December 3rd car accident at Machakos Junction, Kibaki swore to conduct his duties as president without fear or favor or malice.
Nitakuwa mwaminifu kwa Jamhuri ya Kenya na kuitumikia kwa moyo wangu wote, na kwamba nitahifadhi, nitailinda na kuitetea katiba ya Kenya.
Kibaki will then reward Wamalwa Kijana with the vice presidency for his contribution to his presidential win.
And taking into consideration the current challenges facing the country, as well as the need to ensure regional balance in the leadership of this country, I am today announcing the cabinet of the Grand Coalition government.
On January 3rd, 2003, Kibaki named his first cabinet, where many of his loyalists who had campaigned for him when he was recovering from the accident made it to the list. Among them were Raila Odinga, Martha Karua, Kalonzo Musyoka, Charity Ngilu, Mudi Awori, Lina Jebi Kilimo, Naji Balala, Kiraitu Murungi, Anyang' Nyong'o, Chirau Ali Makwere, Mukisa Kitui, and Ochilo Ayako. However, the year 2007-2008 was no ordinary year for Kenyans after a disputed election where more than 1,500 people died and 650,000 others were displaced. Former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan mediated the talks between the government and the opposition, where a power-sharing agreement was reached, reintroducing the position of Prime Minister into the government. In the chaotic aftermath of the 2007-2008 unrest, Kibaki will find himself in an unusual position of presiding over a referendum that overwhelmingly endorsed a new constitution aimed at averting a repeat of the violence.
Haya tutatimiza. Hakuna mambo ambayo hatuwezi kutimiza. Najua wengine ni wajana tu, walizaliwa jana. Katiba hii tumekuwa tukipigania for 20 years.
It was in former President Mwai Kibaki's first cabinet that sports gained stature in government. Honorable Najib Balala was appointed as Minister for Gender, Sport and Social Services. This was followed by the creation of the Sports Stadium Management Board to manage facilities in the country. It was also during his presidency that the Sports Act was initiated and it came to life in 2013. On the 5th of July 2003, the former president was at the stadium as Dennis Oliet scored the winning goal against Cape Verde to send the Harambee Stars to the 2004 Africa Cup of Nations. In 2007, Kenya successfully hosted the World Cross Country Championships in Mombasa as President Kibaki's first term came to a close. In 2010, he officially opened the African Senior Athletics Championships at the Nyayo National Stadium, where Kenya topped the medal table, scooping 25 medals, 10 of them being gold. In 2009, he got to meet the world record holder in the 100 meters Usain Bolt, who was in the country to adopt a cheetah. And he also received the FIFA World Cup trophy. From a family perspective, the former president's son Jimmy and his grandson Mwai Kibaki Jr. were ardent motocross riders and represented the country in different classes. From 1978, former President Kibaki served as patron of the Kenya Golf Union, and Muthaiga Golf Club was his favorite hangout. As president, he attended the Kenya Open Golf Championship event, with his last one in office taking place at the current country club in February of 2013. In 2018, he was among the 12 persons inducted into the Kenya Open Golf Limited Hall of Fame. In his honor, the Nyeri Club hosts the annual Kibaki Trophy tournament. The trophy was donated to the club in 1976 when the late Kibaki was Minister for Finance. To sportsmen, the legacy of the former president is a defined cash reward scheme for medalists at global events that has been retained to date. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Born Emilio Stanley Mwai Kibaki on 15th November 1931 in Gaturene village, Othaya in present-day Nyeri County, Kibaki worked as a lecturer at Makerere University in Uganda. Kibaki returned to Kenya to become KANU's executive officer and helped draft Kenya's independence constitution. In 1962, Kibaki was elected the Member of Parliament for Donholm constituency, present-day Makadara. Subsequently, he was appointed Assistant Minister for Finance and Chairman of the Economic Planning Commission in 1963. He played a key role in drafting the famous 1965 sensational paper number 10 on African socialism and its application to planning in Kenya. He would be promoted to become Minister for Commerce and Industry in 1966.
Well, we used to sell about 10% of our total manufactured products to Tanzania. As it is now, with the border closed, we are not selling very much. We're still selling some. But we have found other markets. So the adjustment has been a little bit painful, but we've made it.
And later Minister for Finance and Economic Planning in 1969 after he was re-elected to Parliament to represent Donholm constituency. Following what is said to be pressure from his closest rival in the 1969 elections, Miss Giles Noble, Kibaki moved his political base from Nairobi to Othaya in 1974. He attributed this to what he termed calls from the people of Othaya. He was overwhelmingly elected Othaya MP in 1974, getting re-elected to Parliament in 1979, 1983, 1988, 1992, 1997, 2002 and 2007. When Daniel Arap Moi succeeded Jomo Kenyatta as the country's president in 1978, Kibaki was named Kenya's vice president but retained his position as finance minister. He was moved to the Ministry of Home Affairs in 1982. A fallout with President Moi in March 1988 saw Kibaki demoted from the vice presidency and moved to the Ministry of Health as minister. Despite the fallout with Moi, Kibaki would remain loyal to the president and the ruling party KANU. Hence, it came as a surprise for many when he resigned from government in December 1991, days after the repeal of Section 2A of the Constitution, which restored multi-partyism in Kenya. His resignation would then see him form the Democratic Party, DP, with which he used to vie for presidency in 1992 against Mwai, Kenneth Matiba and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. Kibaki came in third. He ran for presidency again in 1997, this time around finishing second behind Mwai and becoming the leader of the official opposition in 1998. Mwai Kibaki would give the presidency another shot in 2002, this time around boosted by a host of other opposition parties under the National Alliance Rainbow Alliance. And truth to the saying, that time is the charm. On 27th December 2002, Kibaki and NARC registered a landslide victory over KANU with 62% of the votes compared to his competitor Uhuru Kenyatta's 31%. The win brought an end to KANU's 4 decades rule since independence. Kibaki got re-elected in 2007 in his second and final term as the president of Kenya. Mwai Kibaki passed away on the 22nd of April 2022.
Let me start by saying that the late President Mwai Kibaki was always a father figure to us. His age was such that he was almost he was my father's age. And consequently, in our relationship with him, way back to when we were young people around the town, and he was then the finance minister in the government of late President Mwai, he was a man we all admired as we grew up. And as young yuppies, as young men in Nyeri, we used to go to Nyeri Club, where we would find him and greet him and admire him for the way he held himself and the way he worked. When he launched the Democratic Party, some of us, I was then working for the Standard newspaper, I volunteered to work as his PR. I remember working on his posters. I remember organizing for his photography on top of what is now Integrity House for the presidential poster that we were eventually printing at Karaprint and following up there with Gengi Muigai to see that it was printed. So for us, he represented aspiration. We really wanted to be like him, and in doing so, he led us in a very calm way. As I said, he symbolizes tolerance. He symbolized humility, and it is no wonder then that those of us, including current President Uhuru, really, admired and liked the way that Kibaki led us.
It is during Kibaki's tenure that the world came to realize that people can send money from one person to the other using their mobile phone. Tell us more about that innovation and what role did the president play in realizing that dream?
Well, there are two things in connection with mobile money. First is the building of the infrastructure that can allow for mobile money, and that can allow for the kind of communication that we do today, and as cheaply as we do today, in terms of implementation of the construction of a fiber optic cable. And I still remember, being out in the UAE and being unable to find where our fiber optic cable was going to land in Fujairah. And I asked Ambassador Hussein, who was then serving, I said, Hussein, how do we get the government of UAE to agree for Kenya to connect its fiber optic cable here? And he said, if you can get a letter from President Kibaki and to the ruler of Dubai, then we can get this show done. And I picked up my phone I telephoned Ipu, who was then serving as in President Kibaki's State House Comptroller, and I said to him, I need to talk to the president, because Kibaki did not carry a phone around with him. I need to talk to the president, and he said, okay, and he walked to his office, and he says, huko iko namna gani? And I said, hapa ni joto mzee, lakini iko joto ingine nataka usaidizi. And I explained to him that I needed a letter from him. And he said, that letter, nani atalete? So I explained to him that, PS Bitange Demo was going to pick up the letter from him and bring it to Fujairah. That's how, to Dubai. That's how we got the Fujairah connection. Without him, it would never have been possible. And then came the launch of the M-Pesa. Remember, there was a lot of debate around M-Pesa, that how can Safaricom hold money for people when it is not a bank? So do they need a banking license? But they can't get a banking license because they are not a bank. Yeah, so then, the catch-22 situation. And when we explained it, both myself and Amos Kimunya, who was then finance minister, and we explained to him, he said, listen, technology, we will never be able to make laws for technology before it comes. You can only make laws for technology once it has come. And consequent to which, let's go ahead. He approved that we go ahead with the launch of M-Pesa. And as we go on, we will appreciate what needs to be done, for the control and management of M-Pesa. Again, without him, it would never have been done.
When he left office in 2013, did you also keep contact?
Yes, we did. We would meet occasionally in very many functions, but don't forget at that time he was also resting. But on many occasions, when he would be in Nyeri, when he would be in functions, when he would be in church functions, we would meet and and engage each other. So, for me, it is the loss of a mentor, and I think for Kenyans, it is really the loss of a great, great leader. But he wasn't just a leader just for Kenya, or for that matter, for Nyeri. He was a leader for East Africa. He was admired person across the globe. And let's not forget that he was first admired, not even because of his presidency, but of his knowledge of the economy, his understanding of economics and what a nation can be as a result of economic leadership. So for us, I think, for us in my generation, and those of us who worked under President Kibaki, I think he's a great loss. You feel like a little part of you, and a little part of your leadership vision is gone. And then you ask yourself, now that has happened, we have always looked at the age group of the Mwai Kibaki. There was others who have passed on, and you ask yourself, now that they are gone, who are we looking at? And then suddenly you look behind you and you see you look ahead of you and you see there's nobody, and the realization that you are the wazers now, is one that is scary. But it is one that also comes with responsibility, and for us to emulate and lead in a manner that was set for us as a standard, as a yardstick on which we must all reach.
If you were to describe the late president in one or two words, how would you describe him?
A humble man of God. He was not a priest. He was not a preacher, but he was a humble man of God.
What are you going to miss about the late president?
I think just the knowledge that he's not around, that you can say, at a personal level, for example, I can't call Jimmy or Judy and say, hey, we want to go and see Mzee. The fact that you can't do that is sad. It's really sad. And I really want to just wish the members of his family, who I know well, I really wish them well, and I hope that God gives them strength to overcome.
Ili kupata Daniel chapter 3 kama skiza tune kwenye simu yako, bonyeza *811 *815#.
Shedraki, Meshaki na Abednego katika tanuru la moto. Danieli sura ya 3. Mfalme akaona watu 4, ingawa alikuwa ametupa watu 3 katika moto. Huyo alikuwa ni mtu wa 4. Mtu wa 4 anapotembea pamoja nawe anashangaza maadui.
Kupata Daniel chapter 3, bonyeza *811 *815#. *811 *815#.
This is the coziest bed I've ever slept in.
You feel good, but I don't like it.
Why would Gordon still keep this picture here? What reason could he have to keep it? You took away my dad's company, took away my mom's house and everything we owned. So don't pretend that you cared.
Mr. Huang, you go in and rest. I'll wipe it clean for you.
You were one of my clients. How could I let you wash my car for me?
I know Kitanzu is a very inconvincible person.
Okay, Kamene, today I'll beat your way. I am not going to even correct you. I can't. I can't.
I mean, wait. Do you guys still get some beating from your parents? As big as some of you are?
You just know I will leave my mother's house when I am 33 years.
That is the way to go, Kamene. Other thing is not the way we thought. See everything the way we thought. See, right?
Angalia juba yako.